Chapter 1667. Wow! This building is so beautiful! In Yanhuang Academy, Chen Shuozhen, who had handed in her paper in advance, passed through a few small paths and came to the front of the academy's library. When she saw the majestic, red tower, she was stunned. After being stunned for a while, she couldn't help but murmur in admiration. The flying eaves and carved flowers are elegant and stylish. The red pillars and green bricks complement each other. It's both majestic and beautiful. What kind of person could design such a building? Women liked beautiful things the most. Although the Guanghua building where she had taken the exam was tall and majestic, it wasn't very beautiful. The most important thing was that it didn't meet a woman's aesthetic standards. However, the red house in front of her was different. It was both majestic and beautiful. For a young girl like Chen Shuozhen, it had a fatal attraction. Therefore, Chen Shuozhen, who came back to her senses, lifted her foot and wanted to enter the red house to take a look. However, as soon as she stepped out, she saw an academy guard in black standing at the entrance of the red house on the stairs. Chen Shuozhen immediately retracted her foot that had just stepped out. Ah, there's a guard here. I'm not a student of Yanhuang College yet. That guard definitely won't let me in. What a pity! Chen Shuozhen said resentfully. When she had handed in her paper in advance and walked out of the Guanghua building, there was a teacher who specifically told her not to wander around the college. She could either go to the cafeteria to eat or go down the mountain and wait for the second exam in the afternoon to return to the college. Chen Shuozhen, who had never been a good girl, certainly wouldn't listen to her teacher obediently. In addition, most of the people in the college were invigilating the exam in the examination hall. It could be said that there was no defense. Chen Shuozhen sneaked under the eyes of several guards to the red house of Yanhuang College. But that was it. If she went any further, she would definitely be caught by the guards at the entrance of the red house. Therefore, Chen Shuozhen could only look at the red house with regret and turn around to leave. Let's go to the cafeteria. We can't even find a restaurant in this wilderness, so we can only eat lunch in the academy. Well, I heard that the food in Yanhuang College is comparable to the food in Chang'an. I don't know if it's true, but I'll bring some food for my little sister later. After leaving the red house, Chen Shuozhen thought for a while and walked directly to the canteen of the academy. Ouch! Who is it? Don't you look where you're going? Coincidentally, the lass had just passed through the garden behind Guanghua building when she bumped into a nimble and speedy little fatty. The fatty's weight, coupled with his originally fast speed, created a huge momentum that directly knocked Chen Shuozhen's small body back several steps. In the end, she couldn't stabilize her body and fell to the ground. The little lass couldn't help but cry out in pain. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you all right? Why is it you, little lass? The little fatty who was in a hurry was naturally the current Prince of Wei, Li Tai, who was hungry and anxious to find food. When Li Tai walked here, he suddenly saw a petite figure walking out from the side of the road. However, when he saw it, he was less than a foot away from the figure. The visual information was transmitted to the nerve center, and the nerve center sent the command to the limbs to stop moving forward. This process also took a long time, so Li Tai directly bumped into the figure. The current Li Tai was no longer the arrogant and despotic second generation of the royal family. After more than a year of training in the academy, Li Tai's three views had become very upright. Therefore, when he heard the cry of pain, he hurriedly went forward to help the person up. However, after seeing the person's appearance, he quickly withdrew his hand and snorted in an unfriendly tone. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. This was really a narrow road for enemies. Previously, when the dragon sect was wreaking havoc in Chang'an City, Li Tai happened to meet Chen Shuozhen on the street. At that time, Chen Shuozhen thought that she could crack Immortal Du's levitation skill, but she needed 100 strings of coins from Li Tai. At that time, Li Tai, Di Jixuan, and Sun Zifan were investigating the strange death of a key prisoner in the Supreme Court. Perhaps intuitively, Li Tai also felt that there was something wrong with Du Yi, so he agreed to Chen Shuazhen's condition and gave her 100 strings of coins. Although Chen Shuazhen did crack Du Yi's levitation skill later on, Li Tai, who knew the real principle of the levitation skill, suddenly felt that the 100 strings of coins was not worth it. He felt that he had been tricked by Chen Shuazhen. To put it bluntly, it was like going into a shop to buy something for 100 strings of coins, only to find that it was not worth 100 strings of coins. He felt that he had been cheated by the boss, but the boss did not return the goods. Li Tai felt that he was, after all, one of the top 3 students in Yanhuang College. In the end, he was tricked by Chen Shuazhen, an unknown little girl. This made him feel that his IQ had been insulted. Therefore, he had been thinking about Chen Shuazhen in his heart. He was thinking about how to get back at her the next time they met. Now that the enemy had met, it could be said that his eyes were exceptionally red. At first, Li Tai was prepared to pull up the person who had been knocked down. Now that he saw that it was Chen Shuazhen, he only wanted to say, "Pull my ass, what a good knock!" Well, the little fatty was so vengeful. Chapter 1668. This Prince of Wei is really a fool with a lot of money. Now my sister and I don't have to worry about food and clothing in Chang'an City anymore. In any case, Chen Shuazhen had practiced martial arts before. Although she was only a dabbler in martial arts, no matter what, she was still better than Li Tai, this little fatty who lacked training. Thus, after a short while, she had completely shaken off Li Tai. Using her hand to touch the brand new 100 Tang yuan in her purse, Chen Shuazhen was in a great mood, and could not help but sigh. Even though she had cheated 100 strings of money from Li Tai last time, she had already spent most of it. Yesterday, she was still worrying about how to earn money. After all, even if she got into Yanhuang College, she wouldn't be able to get a scholarship immediately. The earliest she could get a scholarship would be next spring. During this period, she and Chen Shuyu needed money to eat. However, she didn't expect someone to give her a pillow when she was about to doze off. Chen Shuazhen's main purpose of coming to Yunshan today was to take the entrance exam. However, she had unexpectedly met Li Tai, the child of wealth. Now, Chen Shuazhen didn't have to worry about money in the short term. It's getting late. The morning exam will probably end soon. I have to go to the college cafeteria to buy some food and bring it down the mountain to eat with Xiao Yu. After recovering from her initial excitement and joy, Chen Shuazhen's expression returned to normal. She quickly walked to the cafeteria on the east side of the college. She had asked the college guard earlier and knew that the cafeteria was on the east side of the college. Oh, the chicken here is actually as good as the ones in Chang'an City's Drunken Immortal restaurant. It's amazing! Wow! Why does this Dongpa pork smell even better than the ones in Drunken Immortal restaurant? This meat is too tender. This lion's head is not bad either. Wow! Is this a meteoric rise? Smells good. So good. At this time, there was still about half an hour before the end of the morning examination. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any students in the cafeteria at this time. But just as Chen Shuazhen pushed open the door and entered, before she could even sigh at the spacious and bright cafeteria hall, she saw a young man in embroidered clothes sitting at a seat gorging on food, wolfing it down as if he hadn't eaten food for 8 lifetimes. And in front of him, there were actually 7 or 8 empty plates, and 4 or 5 dishes that he hadn't finished. On one hand, Chen Shuazhen was surprised that this young man would come to the cafeteria to eat at this time. On the other hand, she was also surprised by this young man's appetite. After all, there were 4 or 5 unfinished dishes on the table. Even if the 2 sisters added up, they still wouldn't be able to finish them. However, this young man in front of her was not only eating alone, but also had 7 or 8 empty plates piled up in front of him. From this, one could see how terrifying his appetite was. Slowly approaching the young man, Chen Shuozhen didn't stop to avoid causing trouble. She also didn't specifically greet the young man. She just glanced at the dishes in front of the young man. After all, she had never eaten at Yanhuang College. Taking a look now, she would have a reference when she went to buy food later. As far as her eyes could see, there were either golden yellow chicken drumsticks, marinated meatballs the size of fists, or steamed meat that was steaming and fragrant. Although Chen Shuozhen couldn't name the dishes, they looked delicious, and she couldn't help but secretly swallow her saliva. Passing by the young man, Chen Shuozhen came to the ordering window. When she saw the menu hanging above the window, she couldn't help but be surprised. Gnawed chicken, dompa pork, lion's head, twice-cooked pork, meteoric rise, and stir-fried bean sprouts? Aren't these the famous dishes of Drunken Immortal Restaurant? It's one serving for $5. Although Chen Shuozhen had previously cheated 100 strings of money from Li Tai, she had never been to Drunken Immortal Restaurant. Money had to be used where it was needed. This was the law that Chen Shuozhen had always pursued. She was used to living a hard life. Even if she became rich overnight, she still wouldn't go to a high-end restaurant like Drunken Immortal Restaurant. Although she had never been to Drunken Immortal Restaurant and had never seen those dishes before, she had still heard of them. After all, these dishes were too famous, and of course, the price was expensive enough. It was because the price was too expensive that Chen Shuozhen had always wanted to eat them, but couldn't bear to eat them. But now, after seeing the price closely followed by the stone plate at the cafeteria window, Chen Shuozhen couldn't help but be stunned. After being stunned for a moment, she covered her small mouth and said, "Heavens! Why are these dishes sold for $5 a serving at Drunken Immortal Restaurant, but here it's only 200 coins a serving?" That's right, the food in Yanhuang College's cafeteria had always been cheaper than outside. At first, it was 300 coins a serving, but now it had dropped to 200 coins. When the waiter in front of Chen Shuozhen heard her exclamation, he couldn't help but laugh. Hee. What's so strange about this? Drunken Immortal Restaurant is Marquise, and the Academy is also Marquise. Yanhuang College's students are one of his own to Marquis, so of course, the price would be cheaper for his own people. Little girl, quickly take a look and see what you want to eat? When Chen Shuozhen heard this, she suddenly understood. She knocked on her small head and muttered, "Hey! I actually forgot about these. Uncle, I want a portion of gnawed chicken, a portion of lion's head, a portion of soaring star, plus a portion of dompa pork, and 2 portions of rice." When the waiter heard this, he couldn't help but grin and kindly remind her, "Hey! I say, little girl, can you eat so much by yourself? If you waste food, the teachers of the academy won't be happy if they see it." Chen Shuozhen stuck out her tongue and said with a smile, "Thank you, uncle, for reminding me, but these dishes are not for me alone. I want to bring them down the mountain to eat with my sister." "Oh, right, can the academy's dishes be brought down the mountain?" Chapter 1669. Ahem. Little How. Actually, there's something I should have told you earlier, but you didn't ask, so I'm the current Prince of Wei. In the Yanhuang College cafeteria, Li Tai had no intention of revealing his true identity to Lin Hao, but it was obvious that he couldn't hide it anymore. Moreover, if Lin Hao could get into Yanhuang College, then it would be even harder to hide his identity in the future. This was because almost all the students in the college knew his true identity. Therefore, Li Tai didn't hide it and directly admitted it openly and openly. What? Qin-Ke, you're the Prince of Wei? In Lin Hao's heart, Li Tai was the same as him, a rich young master from a well-off family, a happy and interesting fat otaku. Both of them didn't like to socialize with others, but once they met someone they liked, they would quickly become close friends. However, Lin Hao never thought that Li Tai would be a member of the royal family. Moreover, he was one of the most favored princes of the current emperor, The Prince of Wei. Whether it's the Prince of Wei or Chinke, it's all me. We're all friends. Moreover, when you get into the college, there won't be any Prince of Wei anymore, because the college doesn't care about status, only classmates. Seeing that Lin Hao was stunned on the spot, Li Tai couldn't bear to lose this friendship. Therefore, he stepped forward and patted Lin Hao's shoulder, comforting him. Hee. Then I'll call you Chinke from now on, I'm more used to it. Oh right, also, I'll definitely get into Yanwang College this time, and we'll be classmates in the future. The stunned Lin Hao finally regained his senses after hearing Li Tai's word. He scratched his head and laughed. When this guy first met Li Tai, it was mainly because they were like-minded and didn't care about Li Tai's identity at all. Although Li Tai's announcement of his identity surprised him, it was only a surprise. Firstly, he didn't feel inferior, secondly, he didn't feel that he was cheated, and thirdly, he didn't deliberately flatter Li Tai just because he was the current Prince of Wei. He only wanted to be friends with Li Tai like before. Li Tai instantly understood Lin Hao's thoughts. He couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief and laughed heartily. Ha ha. Xiao Hao, I'm waiting for the day we'll be classmates. Where's that brat? While they were talking, Li Tai suddenly felt that something was wrong, because Chen Shuozhen, who was standing beside them just now, was suddenly gone. Oh, Chinke, are you talking about that girl just now? Lin Hao asked. Yes. Wasn't she standing here just now? Li Tai's heart was full of doubts. When we were talking just now, she took the food box and left. What's wrong? Chinke, are you looking for her? Lin Hao recalled for a moment and said, This brat is really cunning. Li Tai muttered, then pretended to not care and shook his head. Nothing, it's just that, this brat owes me 100 strings of coins. Xiao Hao, if you see her next time, remember to help me tie her up. Do you understand? Being cheated of 100 strings of coins by a brat, this kind of embarrassing thing, Li Tai would never say it out loud. Lin Hao scratched his head doubtfully and said, Tie her up? Just for 100 strings of coins? Chinke, you don't need that 100 strings of coins, why bother with her? Besides, I think she seems to be an examinee from the medical school. Maybe she will be your classmate in the future. Just treat it as giving her the 100 strings of coins. We don't lack money, so just treat it as spending money to buy happiness. How great! Spending money to buy happiness, probably only the foolish son of a landlord like Lin Hao could say such things. Li Tai was speechless for a moment. He couldn't say that he was cheated of money by Chen Shuozhen, right? How embarrassing would that be? Clang, clang, clang. At 4 in the afternoon, a dull sound of bells and drums sounded in Yanhuang College, indicating the official end of the morning's admission examination. All examinees, stop writing immediately, sit in your seats, and wait for the papers to be collected. The invigilators in each examination hall stood up one after another and directed the collection of papers. At this time, Chen Shuozhen had already arrived at the foot of the Cloud Mountain with the cafeteria's food box. Soon, she found Chen Shuoyu at the prearranged location. Xiaoyu! Xiaoyu! Chen Shuozhen walked quickly to her younger sister and said with a face full of smiles, How is it? You must be hungry, right? Look at what delicious food your sister brought for you. Come, let's go to the shade over there. It's cooler. At noon, the sun was shining brightly. Although it was already mid-July, the weather was still relatively hot, especially at noon. Yes, yes. The two sisters came to the forest at the foot of the mountain in the west. As they were both wearing new clothes today, they were afraid of getting dust, so they didn't directly sit on the ground. However, Chen Shuoyu was already prepared. She took out a piece of gray coarse cloth from the bag on her back and spread it directly on the grass. Then she said crisply, Sister, sit on it and your clothes won't get dirty. Yes. Chen Shuozhen responded, then put the food box on the gray coarse cloth and sat down. At this time, Chen Shuoyu couldn't wait to ask, Sister, I just heard the bell and drums of the academy's examination end. Why did you bring the food down so quickly? Your sister is smart. I finished the exam in advance. Chen Shuazhen smiled playfully. Then sister, are you sure you can get into Yanhuang College this time? Chen Shuayu couldn't help but be happy when she heard that. More or less. Chen Shuazhen thought for a while and said with a smile. Logically speaking, she was indeed qualified to have this confidence. Wow. Sister, you're so awesome. When Chen Shuayu heard that, she was so excited that she almost jumped up. She quickly said, Sister, quickly tell me what the dean on the mountain looks like? I heard that it's like an immortal palace. Is it true? The academy? At this time, Chen Shuazhen put down the food box, thought for a while, and said, In the academy there are tall buildings and magnificent buildings. It can indeed be called a paradise on earth. If there's a chance, I'll take you up there to see it. Now let's eat first. See what delicious food your sister brought you? After saying that, Chen Shuazhen opened the food box. Suddenly, a strong smell of fried oil and a strong smell of meat spread out. Chen Shuayu immediately threw the question of what the academy looks like to the back of her mind. At this time, her eyes were only on the delicious food in the food box. Wow! Sister, what dish is this? I want to eat it. It's better than the food that master cooks. Chen Shuayu's eyes widened as she swallowed her saliva. Chen Shuazhen glared at her younger sister and said with a serious face, Xiaoyu, you're not allowed to talk about master. Master's food will always be the best, understand? Although the food in front of them was delicious, it was only to satisfy their appetite. Although their master's cooking was not that good, it allowed them to survive. Chen Shuazhen naturally knew which was more important, the desire for good food and the debt of saving their lives. I know, sister. I'm wrong. Chen Shuayu knew that she had said something wrong. She quickly stuck out her tongue and said weakly with a drooping face. Her sister had always been strict about Tian Xuanzi, and Chen Shuayu was already used to it. Hurry up and eat. The food won't taste good when it's cold. Seeing Chen Shuayu's pitiful look, Chen Shuazhen's heart softened. Yes, yes. Chen Shuayu immediately became excited. She quickly picked up her bowl and chopsticks and went straight for the golden, nibbled chicken. It was crispy and fragrant in her mouth. Chen Shuayu excitedly shouted as she ate, Woo woo woo. Sister, this is a drumstick. It's so delicious. Hurry up and eat. Chen Shuazhen smiled and said, Okay. The two sisters quickly began their battle. 4 plates of delicacies might seem like a lot to the two little girls, but in less than half an hour, the Chen Shuazhen and Chen Shuayu sisters had wiped them clean. There really wasn't a single scrap left. If it weren't for the fact that the plates were easily stained with oil, they probably wouldn't even need to be washed. It was simply too clean. Burp. Sister, when will you finish your exam in the afternoon? Chen Shuayu had never eaten so much in her life. She rubbed her belly that was obviously much bigger than before and let out a satisfied burp before asking. In the afternoon? It should be very soon, right? It's just identifying the herbs on the spot. We have been helping Master pick herbs for 2 years. This is not a problem for me. Chen Shuazhen was also very full. She thought for a while and could not help but feel proud. She was not bragging. If you asked her to describe the effects of each herb, it might be difficult for her. However, if you asked her to identify herbs, it was basically not a problem for her. This was because when she was on the mountain, she did not say that she knew all kinds of herbs, but she could still identify dozens of herbs. Therefore, she was basically as steady as a dog in the medical school exam. Then I'll congratulate you in advance for getting into Yanhuang College. If father, mother, and master knew about it, they would definitely be overjoyed. Chen Shuayu could not help but feel happy when she heard that. Chapter 1670. Dad? Mom? Master? At the foot of Yunshan Mountain, Chen Shuazhen, who was imagining her beautiful life after being admitted to Yanhuang College, heard Chen Shuoyu's words. Her bright face couldn't help but show some sadness because she thought of her deceased parents and master. For 2 7- or 8-year-old girls, losing their parents was already a very painful thing. However, they lost their master this year. As the saying goes, a teacher for a day is a father for life. This was equivalent to experiencing the pain of losing a loved one again. This could be said to be cruel to the two sisters. Fortunately, after they came to Chang'an City, they met a series of benefactors, and their situation gradually improved. Dad, Mom, Master, don't worry. I will definitely lead Xiaoyu to live a good life in Beijing. Chen Shuoyu raised her head and looked at the clouds in the sky as she said with determination. On the 15th of July in the second year of Zhenguan era, the first empress in China's history gave a grand wish to live a good life in Beijing, at the foot of Yunshan Mountain. Okay. It's getting late. I should go up the mountain. Xiaoyu, wait under the shade of the tree. I will bring you back after the exam. Don't run around. Okay. Sis, you will definitely pass. Chen Shuoyu raised her head and replied crisply. Then, she watched as Chen Shuozhen left. Clang, clang, clang. At 5:30 p.m., the bell and drum on Yunshan Mountain rang again, indicating that the second entrance exam for Yanhuang College had officially begun. In the engineering exam hall, the subject in the afternoon was mathematics, which accounted for 50% of the total score. Therefore, all the examinees attached great importance to it. In the past year, they had spent most of their time studying Yanhuang College's new mathematics. However, the questions for this year's mathematics exam were much more difficult than last year's. This was because from the time Li Zixuan announced the establishment of Yanhuang College on Datong Daily to the end of July, only 3 to 4 months had passed. In other words, the average preparation time for the examinees was definitely less than 3 months. At most, only one person could complete the introductory level of mathematics in 2 months. It would be too much to ask someone to become proficient in mathematics. Therefore, 80% of the questions in the mathematics section of the Academy's entrance examination last year were basic questions. Only the last question was somewhat difficult and was used to widen the gap between the students. However, it was different this year. The candidates who came to take the entrance exam for Yanhuang College had generally prepared for the exam for more than half a year. Many of them had already started to prepare for this year's entrance exam when the entrance exam for Yanhuang College had just ended last year. In addition, at the beginning of this year, Li Er had personally issued a decree ordering all schools and government offices in the various provinces and counties of the Great Tang to switch to using the new method of accounting. For a period of time, the entire Great Tang was in a frenzy to learn the new method of accounting, and the standard of the Great Tang citizens was raised. Last year, if you were to ask 10 people on the street for the mnemonic formula of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, no one would be able to answer it. But now, 7 out of 10 people would be able to answer it. Therefore, due to this situation, the difficulty of the mathematics questions this time was much higher than last year's. There were no free marks in the papers, and every question required some effort to solve correctly. Not only could this widen the gap between the candidates, but it could also test the overall standard of the Great Tang citizens. Once the overall difficulty of the papers was raised, Lin Hao was overjoyed. This was because he was hoping to use his mathematics results to widen the gap between him and the other students. One had to know that Lin Hao was the most confident in his mathematics. Moreover, he had learned all his mathematics from Iron Egg. Iron Egg's mathematics results were among the best in the entire academy. How could his students be bad? With the flood of questions provided by Iron Egg, Lin Hao's current level of mathematics was considered to be above average even among the second-year students in the academy. Now, among the other candidates, Lin Hao was basically invincible in mathematics. As for the medical school, The afternoon examination was mainly about identifying medicinal herbs on the spot. Every half an hour, 5 types of medicinal herbs would be presented on the podium in each examination hall. Each medicinal herb would have a label on it. The candidates in the examination hall would line up to identify the 5 medicinal herbs on the podium in order. Every student had a very limited time on the podium. Once the time was up, they would be ordered to return to their seats and write down the identification results on the answer sheet according to the label of the medicinal herb. Then, after half an hour, another 5 types of medicinal herbs would be placed on the podium. The students would then line up to identify the medicinal herbs on the podium. In this way, there would be a total of 8 groups of medicinal herbs for the students to identify. During the identification and answering process, there would be an invigilator supervising from the side to prevent the candidates from interacting with each other and cheating. This examination method was to test the students' ability to recognize medicinal herbs. On the other hand, it was also to test the students' memory. After all, the students had to look at 5 types of medicinal herbs each time. They had to remember the corresponding label of each medicinal herb. Otherwise, even if they recognized all the medicinal herbs, it would be useless if they wrote down the wrong label in the end. Number 1 is Pinellia tuber. Number 2 is Camellia sinensis. Number 3 is Lobelia. Number 4 is white flower snake tongue grass. Number 5 is red peony. After the first round of identification, Chern Shuozhen returned to her seat. She closed her eyes and pondered for a moment before starting to write. Fortunately, they are all common medicinal herbs. Master has brought us into the mountains to pick them before. As long as there are no rare medicinal herbs that I have never seen before, I will definitely have no problem in this afternoon's examination. After writing down the answer sheet, it was not time for the next round of identification yet. Chern Shuozhen let out a sigh of relief and rejoiced in her heart. And things were developing in the direction she had anticipated. Number 6 is grass blackleaf. Number 7 is rush grass. Number 8 is tangerine peel. Number 9 is toad crisp. Number 10 is gall alum. That's great. This is another group of common medicinal herbs. After the second round of identification of medicinal herbs, Chern Shuozhen was completely relieved. Most of the questions for the medical college examination were written by Sun Simiao. Old Sun's medical skills had reached the pinnacle of perfection. In his eyes, everything could be used as medicine. Because of this, Sun Simiao disliked prescribing expensive medicinal herbs when he was treating patients. Under the circumstances that it did not affect the efficacy of the prescription, he would always replace the expensive medicinal herbs with common ones. This was because, in his opinion, this was the best test of a doctor's ability. Therefore, in the second round of the medical college examination, there were no rare medicinal herbs that were rarely seen by ordinary people. On one hand, it was to test the examinee's foundation. On the other hand, Sun Simiao wanted to convey his medical philosophy to the students. Clang, clang, clang. 4 hours of examination time was neither long nor short. When the sun was setting in the west, a melodious sound of drums and bells could be heard from above the clouds, indicating that the second year of Yanhuang College's entrance examination had officially come to an end. The examination is over. It's finally over. This year's mathematics questions are too difficult. That's right. It's much harder than last year. Sigh. I didn't even have time to answer the last big question. Brother Chu, you only have one question that you didn't answer? I have 2 questions that I didn't answer. It's over, it's over. I definitely won't be able to pass this time. The examination is over, what's the point of talking about that? Let's go to Baiwa Tower for a drink tonight and drink away our worries. How about that? Let's go together. Let's get drunk. At most, we'll take the exam again next year. That's right, that's right. At most, we'll take the exam again next year. Hey, hey, hey. Look over there. Wow. The examinees who had just handed in their papers and walked out of Guanghua Tower could not help but discuss spiritedly. Regardless of whether they did well or not, since the examination was over, everyone wanted to relax. Many of them even said that they wanted to go to the brothel. In this era, going to the brothel was not a shameful thing. It was normal for scholars to be romantic. As long as you did not go overboard, no one would make a fuss about it. In the midst of the hubbub, the crowd suddenly quieted down. Everyone looked towards the west and saw a group of young girls dressed in red and green walking towards the entrance of the college. Hey, aren't those the female medical examinees? It was unknown who said this, but the crowd became lively again. That's right, that's right. I saw them when I entered the examination hall this morning. Tisk tsk. Yanwang College is really special. They actually let women into the college. I should say that the Yanwang College students are in for a treat. Green mountains and clear waters, accompanied by beautiful women, and accompanied by beautiful women. Where else can you find such a good learning environment in the entire Tang Dynasty? A fair and graceful woman is a gentleman's dream. As soon as this sentence was said, it immediately caused a commotion. I've decided. If I can't get into Yanwang College this time, I'll continue next year. I must get into Yanwang College. Me too. Even if I'm old, I'll get into Yanwang College. Hey, what are you guys thinking? I heard from my dad that the medical college will have its own independent courtyard in the future. It will be separated from the School of Engineering, just like the Imperial Medical Department in Chang'an City. Students from the School of Engineering are not allowed to enter on normal days. At this moment, someone could not help but pour cold water on them. It was obvious that this person came from an official's family and knew some insider information. As the reputation of the college had spread over the past year, there were many children of high-ranking officials and nobles among the students who took the entrance examination. It was not surprising that someone knew some insider information. As soon as this was said, it immediately caused a commotion. There's such a thing? Why haven't I heard of it before? Sigh. If I had known, I would have learned medicine from someone earlier. Why? If I knew medicine, I would be able to take the entrance examination and enter the medical college. Amazing. Really amazing. If I don't get in this time, I'll go home and study medicine. Chapter 1671. Sis, you're done? At the foot of Yunshan Mountain, Chen Shuoyu saw Chen Shuozhen walking over from the mountain path. She quickly went up and held Chen Shuozhen's hand excitedly. Yeah, I'm done. The afternoon exam is one round after another, so I can't hand in my paper early. Xiaoyu, you must be hungry, right? Chen Shuozhen rubbed her little sister's head affectionately and smiled. Sis, I'm not hungry yet. Chen Shuoyu shook her head. The lunch was so sumptuous that she didn't feel hungry at all. Compared to eating, she was more concerned about the exam in the afternoon. She looked up at Chen Shuozhen and asked, Sis, is the exam in the afternoon difficult? I heard from the other students that the afternoon exam was very difficult. Haha. Xiaoyu, you must have heard it from the other students from the School of Mathematics, right? Chen Shuozhen couldn't help but laugh. I heard that the School of Engineering's mathematics exam this time was a few times harder than last year's. I heard a lot of students talking about it when I went down the mountain. But the medical school's afternoon exam isn't that difficult. Xiaoyu, you can do all of them. I can do all of them. Really? Sis? Chen Shuoyu's eyes widened. She couldn't believe it and was pleasantly surprised. Of course. Why would I lie to you? Chen Shuozhen couldn't help but pinch her little sister's rosy cheeks and said, The afternoon exam is mainly about identifying herbs. Your sister was worried that we might encounter some rare herbs that we had never seen before. Who knew that among the 40 herbs, at least 30 of them were herbs that we had collected in the mountains before. So, Xiaoyu, if you were to take the exam, these questions wouldn't be difficult for you. Speaking up to here, Chen Shuozhen suddenly thought of something and couldn't help sighing with regret. Ayaya? What a loss. If I knew this would happen, I would have let you apply for Yanwang College. Then, there would be 2 people from the Chen family who would be admitted to Yanwang College at the same time. Other people would be so jealous if they knew. These were Chen Shuozhen's heartfelt words. If she had known that her trip to Beijing for the exam would be so smooth, she would have brought Chen Shuoyu along when she applied for the exam. Sis, I'll take the exam next year. When the time comes, you can be my teacher. Why don't you just teach me what you've learned in the academy? Chen Shuoyu thought for a moment, then raised his head and said, Next year? I'm afraid there won't be such a good opportunity next year. Chen Shuozhen sighed. What she meant by such a good opportunity was, of course, Li Zixuan leaking the questions to her. If not for this, her chances of getting into the academy would be very slim. But the problem was, she still did not know why Li Zixuan leaked the questions to her. Let's go. Go back. Now, all we have to do is wait for the academy to release the results. As the sun set in the west, the 2 sisters followed the countless examinees who had just come down from Mount Yunshan and headed into the distance. Some went home while others went back to their inns. Mount Yunshan, which had been bustling with activity for the entire day, suddenly became deserted. Mr. Kong Gue, from tomorrow onwards, immediately arranged for the teachers from each subject group to jointly grade the papers. The leaders of each subject group will make the final check. If there are any doubts, we can hold a meeting to review and discuss. We must ensure the accuracy of the grading of the papers. In Guanghua Building, Li Zixuan gathered all the teachers in the academy in the conference room and held the first teachers' meeting since his return from the north. Yamacho, don't worry. I will strictly check and ensure that there are no mistakes in the results of every paper. Yen Silu cupped his hands and promised. Li Zixuan nodded, then looked at Mo Huai and said, Mr. Mo, from tomorrow onwards, immediately form a construction team to build a medical school on the west side of the academy. The overall architectural style of the medical school is similar to that of the School of Engineering. You can evaluate how many workers and how much money you need. If you need workers, you can find Old Hu to assist you. As for the money needed, you can directly report the budget to the housekeeper of the House of Marquis. When the time comes, I will let him pay in full. I only have one request. It must be completed before the start of the academy in September. In order to prevent the public from criticizing the existence of female students in the medical school, when Li Zixuan planned to recruit female students in the medical school, he had promised Li Er and the other officials that he would imitate the model of the Imperial Medical Department and build a separate large courtyard for the medical school on Yunshan Mountain. It would be separated from the main building of the Yanwang College. Normally, students from the School of Engineering would not be allowed to enter the medical school. Although there were not only female students in the medical school, there were also male students. This seemed to be deceiving oneself and deceiving others, but it was the same in the Imperial Medical Department. Moreover, the concept of gender in the eyes of medical students was not as strong as that of ordinary people. Therefore, there was a phenomenon of male and female students coexisting in the Imperial Medical Department. By building a medical school similar to the Imperial Medical Department, people's strong doubts about the Academy's recruitment of female students would be appeased. It would also block the leisurely mouths of those traditional defenders. After all, with the Imperial Medical Department as a big tree in front of them, it was reasonable for the medical school to recruit female students. There was a precedent to be followed. After everyone slowly accepted this reality, Li Zixuan would gradually break the barrier between the School of Engineering and the medical department. Perhaps in the future, the entire Yanwang College would be able to recruit both male and female students like a modern school. This was not completely impossible. In fact, it was very possible. This was because the degree of openness of the Tang dynasty's customs was one of the best in China's thousands of years of feudal history. Of course, the reason why Li Zixuan did this was not to promote feminism. After all, he was not a woman. His main purpose was to select talents and stimulate the students' learning and creative abilities. After all, there was a saying that when men and women worked together, the work would not be tiring. Moreover, some female students' intelligence was not inferior to that of male students. After all, many modern cities' top scorers in science were female. Therefore, building an independent medical school on Yunshan was only the first step in Li Zixuan's plan to make the academy fully open to male and female students. I will obey Yamacho's order. I will do my best to build the medical school before school starts. Hearing this, Mo Huai solemnly cupped his hands and said, "If you asked him to build a courtyard similar to Yanwang College's style a year ago, he might not be able to do it. But now, with Yanwang College as a reference, Mo Huai was confident that he would be able to do it." Li Zixuan nodded and said, "Go to the workshop to get the steel and cement needed for the construction. I will inform Faubert and ask him to supply these things to the academy first. In addition, the protective mountain array of the academy must be started at the same time. Mr. Mo, you and all the teachers in the physics department should discuss the construction plan in the next 2 days and immediately start construction. You can combine the Mahist's mechanical skills with engineering. The protective mountain array must be able to be activated and stopped at will. Once it is activated, even a grandmaster will find it difficult to break in. Compared to the construction of the medical school, the construction of the mountain protection formation was undoubtedly more of a technical job. There were too many factors that needed to be considered, especially since Li Zixuan had requested for the Mahist mechanical arts to be combined with engineering. This was undoubtedly a difficult challenge for Mo Huai. Thus, Mo Huai's face immediately turned solemn. After a moment of silence, he cupped his hands and said, "Yamacho, the protective mountain array has too many technical difficulties to overcome, and Yunshan occupies a large area. I'm afraid it will be very difficult to build it. Although the Mahist is proficient in the construction of mechanisms, they know nothing about formations. I can only say that I will do my best." Hearing this, Li Zixuan frowned. After pondering for a moment, he said, "It's fine. Mr. Mo, you can build it first. The protective mountain array is not something that can be completed in a day. There's no need to force it to be completed before school starts. As for formations, my youngest uncle is quite knowledgeable about formations. Counting the days, he should be bringing my seniors or brothers to Yunshan in 3 to 5 days. When the time comes, they will also lend Mr. Mo a hand." Hearing this, Mo Huai could not help but heave a sigh of relief. He nodded with a smile and said, "That's great. Then I can rest assured. In addition, I have already arranged for Mo Zhong to expand the scale of the guards for the academy. Mr. Mo, you will have to help check on this matter when the time comes. Although the martial arts of these people are important, it is more important that they remain loyal to the academy." After pondering for a moment, Li Zixuan said again. Mo Huai nodded and replied, "Yes, Yamacho." At this moment, Li Zixuan looked at the other teachers in the conference room. Now that the academy included the School of Engineering and the School of Medical Sciences, the number of teachers had increased once again. This originally spacious conference room actually seemed a little crowded now. After a pause, Li Zixuan said in a low voice, "In a few more days, I will be going to the Black Armored Army's barracks to serve as an adjutant." "What? Yamacho, you are leaving Yunshan again?" As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. The academy had just suffered a calamity a few days ago, and this allowed them to understand that Li Zixuan was the backbone of the academy. Now that Li Zixuan was actually about to leave, how could the teachers of the academy not be terrified? Everyone, please calm down. Li Zishuan waved his hand, indicating for everyone to be quiet. Then, he continued. The Black Armored Army's camp is in Chang'an, not far from the academy. If anything happens to the academy, I will return immediately. There will definitely not be a crisis like the last time. After I leave, all matters of the academy will be handed over to Teacher Wenji and Teacher Kong Gui to handle. Although the School of Medical Sciences has just been established, all management systems must follow those of the School of Engineering. If there is a shortage of teachers, Sun Daozhong can go ahead and recruit them. Money is not a problem. Teachers of the School of Engineering, first of all, you must do a good job in marking the entrance examinations. Second, as new students enter the School of Engineering, the School of Engineering will also need to recruit a new batch of teachers. The teachers who were originally in Year 1 will enter Year 2 with the original students after school reopens. Before school reopens, you must fully understand the teaching materials for Year 2. Otherwise, how can you teach the students? The newly recruited teachers must also make good use of the time to learn the teaching materials for Year 1. This will be arranged by Teacher Kong Gui. During the time that I am away, everyone must work together to run the academy well. If there is an emergency, immediately send a message to me through Qin K. I will be bringing a telegraph with me when I join the army this time. Chapter 1672. Yes, Yamacho. Yanwang College, in the meeting room of Guanghua Building. After listening to Li Zishuan's earnest instructions, the students in the room cupped their hands and said in unison. Even though they were very unwilling to let Li Zishuan leave the academy at this time, they had to listen to Li Zishuan's instructions and arrangements. This was Li Zishuan's supreme prestige in the academy. Yamacho, how many students do the School of Engineering and the medical school need to enroll this time? After a moment of silence in the meeting room, Li Gang asked at this time. Although the old man had just recovered from a serious illness, he was too old after all. Therefore, Li Zishuan had consciously begun to transfer the tasks of the academy that Li Gang was originally in charge of to people like Yen Silu and Mo Huai. This was not seizing power, but he did not want the old man to be so tired at such an old age. Now, the old man was basically equivalent to a free man in the academy. He was not responsible for any management matters. He only came to the academy when he was bored at home or wanted to see the students in the academy. Although he was a free man, Li Gang's words still carried a lot of weight in the academy. No one dared to disobey him. At this time, when they heard Li Gang's question, all the gentlemen in the meeting room immediately looked over. Obviously, everyone present was very concerned about this issue. In fact, Li Zishuan had thought about the number of students the academy would enroll this year. Hearing this, he pondered for a moment and replied, "The medical school will enroll 300 people this year. There are no restrictions on men and women. The top 600 will be based on results. As for the School of Engineering, it will be based on result. The final weighted average score will be above 70 points. There is no limit to the number of people. However, if the weighted average score of the moral character test is below 16 points, no matter how excellent the results of the other two exams are, they will not be admitted." There were 300 students in the medical school. This was already the result of Li Zishuan's restraint. Even so, this number had already caught up with the current number of students in the Imperial Medical Department. This was only the number of students in the first batch of medical school. When the new students enrolled next year, there would be even more students in Yanwang College's medical school. Li Zishuan had no intention of fighting with the Imperial Physician Bureau for more students. He only wanted to train more doctors with excellent medical skills to promote medical progress in this era. After all, if there were more doctors, there wouldn't be a problem of difficult treatment. As for the Faculty of Technology, Li Zishuan had already seen the questions last night. He also felt that the mathematics questions were a little difficult. As long as the student's overall score was above 70, Li Zixuan felt that such a person was worth nurturing. As for the quota, he did not want to restrict it too much. As long as the student was outstanding enough, he would accept as many as he wanted. It was impossible for him to build the foundation of Tang Dynasty's industry alone. He needed to train a lot of engineering talents to help him. After all, he was not a god. Last year, Iron Egg did not score a single point in the classics section. However, he scored full marks in the moral character test and mathematics section. His weighted average score was 70 points. Li Zixuan had set the cutoff score of 70 points. It just so happened that extreme cases like Iron Eggs were taken into consideration when Li Zixuan set the cutoff score. Although he encouraged the students to be well-rounded, he still welcomed students who were extremely biased. In his previous life, he had met students like this. Their language scores were extremely poor, but their mathematics, physics, and chemistry scores were superb. These people who were able to utilize their strengths to the fullest were still very useful to society. All right, I understand. Sun Simiao heard this and could not help but nod his head. 300 students were still within his acceptable range. Su Hongji, on the other hand, had his doubts. He frowned and asked, Yamacho, what if there are too few students who score above 70 points in the end? This time, the School of Engineering's mathematics exam questions are too difficult. This might happen. Hearing this, Li Zixuan said in a deep voice, It's better to have nothing than to have something substandard. 70 points is my bottom line. No matter how many students score above 70 points there are, we will only accept those who score above 70 points. I have seen the exam papers this time. Although the mathematics exam questions are a bit difficult, don't forget that the number of students this time is 3 times more than last year. Furthermore, the time they have to prepare for the exam is also several times more than last year's students. I believe that as long as they prepare for the exam seriously, 70 points will definitely not be a problem. Seeing Li Zixuan's unusually firm attitude, Su Hongji and the other teachers looked at each other and clasped their hands together. Yes, Yamacho. Li Gang did not say anything from the beginning to the end. This was because he agreed with Li Zixuan's point of view that it was better to have nothing than to have something substandard. Oh right. Li Zixuan suddenly remembered something. He quickly said to Sun Simiao, Priest Sun, this time, the medical school's enrollment quota will be increased by 1 person. It will be 301 people now. Why is that so? After hearing this, not only was Sun Simiao puzzled, but the rest of the people also looked at Li Zixuan suspiciously. They did not know what Li Zixuan was up to. Li Zixuan smiled mysteriously and said, He, this is a heavenly secret. Do not reveal it. Just do as I say. Everyone was speechless, but they could only agree. When Li Zixuan saw that he had said everything that needed to be said, he announced the end of the meeting. After everyone had left, he slowly walked out of Guanghua Building alone and headed towards the field. As for why the medical school's enrollment quota had to be increased by 1, Li Zixuan naturally had his reasons. This was because in this medical school's enrollment exam, there was one person who cheated. That person was Chen Shuozhen. According to Chen Shuozhen's original standards, there was a high probability that she would not be able to pass the exam. However, because of Li Zixuan's interference, Chen Shuozhen was likely to be one of the top candidates in this medical school's enrollment exam. This was equivalent to pushing out one of the top 300 candidates. For that unlucky person, this was naturally unfair. Although Li Zixuan had helped Chen Shuozhen cheat, it didn't mean that he approved of this method of cheating. On the contrary, in his previous life, he hated people who cheated the most, because this kind of person would cause all the hard work of the students to go down the drain. In the current medical school's enrollment exam, the student who was originally ranked 300 had become the victim of Chen Shuozhen's cheating. Therefore, Li Zixuan added another student to the medical school's enrollment quota. This could be considered to be the greatest degree of fairness for this enrollment exam, right? Li Zixuan strolled to the west field of the academy. Looking at the endless sunset in the sky, his heart suddenly calmed down. At this moment, the trivial matters of the academy, the country, and the world did not matter. In his eyes, there was only the blue sky above his head and the endless sunset. Li Zixuan sat down on the ground. Then, as if he was still not satisfied, he simply lay down on the grass and used his arms as a pillow. Just like that, he quietly looked at the sky. His mind was not thinking of anything. He was content and carefree. In fact, in many cases, it was a kind of happiness to have the opportunity to relax and stare blankly into space. This was especially so for Li Zixuan in this life. Since he stepped into Chang'an City last year, he was like a taut clockwork. If it was not for the honor of his family, it was for the livelihood of the people. He did not stop for a moment. Sometimes he really wanted to let go of everything, but he was not willing to. It was funny to say that he was not willing to do nothing when he clearly had the ability to make the country he was in stronger. What is Yamacho thinking about? Unknowingly, an old man sat next to Li Zixuan. Hearing the voice, Li Zixuan turned his head and saw Li Gang sitting next to him, looking at him with a smile. Li Zixuan was shocked. With his martial arts realm, it was impossible for someone to walk next to him without him noticing. Moreover, Li Gang was not a martial arts master. He was just an old man in his 80s. It was even more impossible to reason with him without his ears. Maybe it's because my mind was wandering and I was too relaxed just now? After thinking about it, Li Zixuan could only attribute it to this reason. Teacher Wenji. After recovering from his thoughts, Li Zixuan sat up and quickly bowed to Li Gang. Haha. This old man saw Yamacho lying on the field in a daze, so I came to check on him. I unintentionally disturbed Yamacho's meditation. Please don't blame me, Li Gang said with a benevolent smile. Li Zixuan hurriedly said, What meditation? Teacher Wenji must be joking. This kid was just imagining things. No. Li Gang shook his head seriously and said, This old man can see that Yamacho is tired and wants to be alone in a quiet place to relax and find a moment of peace. But this old man disturbed his meditation. This is indeed this old man's fault. Li Zixuan's eyes narrowed. He did not expect that the tiredness hidden in the depths of his heart could not be hidden from the wise old man in front of him. Also, Li Gang had experienced ups and downs in his life. What kind of storms and waves had he not seen? It would be difficult to hide this matter from Li Gang's discerning eyes. Teacher Wenji must be joking. Li Zixuan forced a smile and bowed to Li Gang. Li Gang's turbid eyes could not help but reveal a touch of affection. He murmured, Alas! Yamacho not only has the heavy responsibility of revitalizing engineering, but also the livelihood of the thousands of people in his fief. He also has to make the Tang Empire prosper day by day. If this old man was Yamacho's age and shouldered so many responsibilities, this old man would also feel tired. Li Gang's words had imperceptibly closed the distance between the two. Li Zixuan suddenly felt that the old man in front of him was incomparably amiable. He even had the impulse to put down his strong facade and cry out loud, because the old man's words had simply touched the bottom of his heart. He was really tired, but he had never said it. Chapter 1673. Teacher Wenji. On the western field of Yanwang College, Li Zixuan looked at the white-haired old man beside him. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't find the words. For a moment, he was speechless. At this moment, Li Gang could see far too many emotions in Li Zixuan's eyes. There was fatigue, desire, and a sliver of confusion. After a long silence, Li Gang slowly spoke. Little Xian, if you're really tired, stay at the academy. If you manage Cloud Mountain well and nurture tens of thousands of engineering talents, our great Tang will still be able to sweep through the universe and dominate the world. Little Xian, although your intentions are good, there are times when you're in too much of a hurry. This is too heavy for you. Slow down a little, child. At this moment, Li Gang was not a teacher of the academy, but Li Zixuan's elder. Whether it was in his expression or in his words, there was no lack of concern for Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan's heart warmed at these words. The old teacher truly understood him, and he also understood the old teacher's meaning, but, no! I can't slow down. The times have changed. I can't stop. Li Zixuan understood Li Gang's good intentions, but he could only accept them. After a few moments of silence, Li Zixuan's eyes gradually became clear. He resolutely shook his head. When you're weak, there are many bad people. When they bully you, they don't even bother to say hello. When you become indestructible, your past sufferings will become dazzling medals, the most painful slap to the evil. If a weakling wants to rise in the darkness, the only way is to shine as brightly as possible. Although the great Tang is not weak, it is far from being strong enough to look down on the heroes of the world. This is especially true in the national war with the Turks in 2 months. The outcome is still unknown. Although I can't overturn the universe and change the situation by myself, I will do my best. All of this started because of me, so I can't slow down. Li Zixuan's words were profound and ethereal. At first glance, it might seem as if he didn't make sense, especially the last sentence. All of this started because of me, so I can't slow down. Although Li Gang didn't fully understand it, the old teacher didn't raise any questions. He seemed to vaguely understand Li Zixuan's current feelings. Teacher Wenji, on the western field of Yanwang College, Li Zixuan looked at the white-haired old man beside him. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't find the words. For a moment, he was at a loss for words. At this moment, Li Gang could see far too many emotions in Li Zixuan's eyes. There was fatigue, desire, and a sliver of confusion. After a long silence, Li Gang slowly opened his mouth. Little Xian, if you're really tired, stay in the academy. Properly manage Cloud Mountain and cultivate tens of thousands of engineering talents, our great Tang can still sweep through the universe and dominate the world. Little Xian, although your intentions are good, there are times when you're in too much of a hurry. This is too heavy for you. Slow down a little, child. At this moment, Li Gang was not a teacher of the academy, but Li Zixuan's elder. Whether it was in his expression or in his words, there was no lack of concern for Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan's heart warmed at these words. The old teacher truly understood him, and he also understood the old teacher's meaning, but, no! I can't slow down. The times have changed. I can't stop. Chapter 1674. Lin Hao had been in seclusion for a few months to prepare for the Academy's entrance exam. During this period, not only did he cut off all contact with the outside world, although he did not have many friends outside, he even stopped reading his favorite novel, Talking World. In these few months, he had devoted all his attention to preparing for the exam. Now that the exam was over, how could Lin Hao, who had been holding it in for so long, hold it in? Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night for him. He wanted to finish reading all the novels that he had accumulated during this period, especially his favorite, Celestial Bane. He had heard from the maid that the novel was finished, but in order to focus on preparing for the exam, he had held it in for the past few months and did not read it. The Lin family had a celebratory feast. In the courtyard where Chen Shuozhen and Chen Shiyu were temporarily staying, there was also a celebratory feast. However, the difference was that the dishes on the table were all prepared by Chen Shuozhen herself. After all, at this time, other than the brothels, all the restaurants on the street were closed. If she did not cook, she could only starve. Looking at the dishes on the table, although they did not look, smell, and taste good, they were at least presentable. Moreover, if one was close enough, it was easy to smell the appetizing aroma of the dishes. It was said that the children of the poor matured early. Now, it seemed that this sentence was true. Wow! It smells so good. Chen Shuayu put her little face in front of the plate and greedily took a deep breath. She praised happily, "Sister, your cooking is still so good." "Humph, of course." Chen Shuajian proudly raised her chin, then looked at her little sister and said with a doting face, "Okay. Sit down and eat. I came back late today and the market is closed. Wait for me to buy some chicken, duck, and meat tomorrow, and I'll let you eat to your heart's content." Okay. Hearing that, Chen Shuayu suddenly jumped up and down in excitement. After all, for the people of this era, they could only eat meat once or twice during festivals. Moreover, they might not be able to eat meat every year. It depended on the harvest. If the harvest was not good, they might not even be able to eat rice, let alone meat. Therefore, meat was a fatal attraction to the children of ordinary families in this era. However, Chen Shuayu had also reached a sensible age. The little girl was only excited for a moment before her small face fell. "Sis, forget it. Didn't you say that we only have 20 strings of money left? It's better to save some money. Xiao Yu doesn't need to eat chicken, duck, or fish." Chen Shuayu obviously wanted to eat, but she tried her best to pretend that she didn't want to eat. Chen Shuajian found it funny, but she also felt a little sad. She couldn't help rubbing Chen Shuayu's head and said with a smile, "Silly girl, who said we don't have money? Sister earned another 100 strings of coins today." "What? Sister, we have an extra 100 strings of coins? Are you serious?" Hearing this, Chen Shuayu couldn't help but widen his eyes in shock. Chen Shuajian pinched her little sister's cheeks and said, "Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you? Sit down and eat. It won't taste good when it's cold." Chen Shuayu sat down and asked curiously, "Sister, where did you earn 100 strings of coins? Aren't you taking the exam at Yanhuang College today?" Why do you have so many questions? Can't such delicious food shut your mouth?" Chen Shuajian didn't want her sister to come into contact with the complicated people and matters outside. Hearing this, she pretended to be angry and scolded. I'll eat. Sister, don't be angry. Marquis, there's a letter from Qingzhou, Lantian County, Marquis Yong An's backyard." Li Zixuan had just returned to his room after dinner when Pang Feiji knocked on the door and whispered, A letter from Qingzhou?" Inside the room, Li Zixuan frowned. He quickly moved to the door and opened it quickly. He saw Pang Feiji outside the door, holding a letter above his head and said, "Yes, Marquis. It's an urgent letter from the former Qingzhou provincial governor's office. It just arrived in the county 15 minutes ago. I was worried that there might be an emergency, so I hurriedly sent it over. Sorry to disturb Marquis's rest, please." I know what you mean. There's no need to say more. You're doing the right thing." Without waiting for Pang Feiji to finish speaking, Li Zixuan patted the latter's shoulder and interrupted him. As he spoke, he had already taken the letter from Pang Feiji's hands. He didn't deliberately avoid it. He directly opened the letter in front of Pang Feiji. Under the light in the room, Li Zixuan read the contents of the letter with unusual seriousness. After a long time, Li Zixuan kept the letter and looked at Pang Feiji expressionlessly. "All right. There's nothing for you to do now. You've been in the north for so long. It's time for you to accompany your family. Go back quickly." Pang Feiji looked touched. "It's my duty to serve Marquis." Li Zixuan waved his hand and said, all right. Duty is duty, but no matter what, you can't leave your family behind. Go back quickly." Pang Feiji had just gotten married last month. Originally, they were newlyweds and should have been inseparable. However, who knew that there would be a plague of locusts? Li Zixuan would lead the Sky Pheasant Brigade up north to exterminate the locusts. As Li Zixuan's personal guard, how could Pang Feiji not go? He had been gone for more than half a month. Now that he was finally back, logically speaking, he should go back to accompany his wife and family. Li Zixuan, who still had some modern thinking in his bones, was very humane when it came to the management of his subordinates. Seeing that Li Zixuan's attitude was firm, Pang Feiji finally didn't insist. He clasped his fist and said, "Thank you, Marquis. I'll take my leave." After saying that, Pang Feiji clasped his fist and left. Li Zixuan closed the door and turned to walk into the house. "Husband, did something happen again?" Han Yushi came over and hurriedly asked. Just now, she had heard the conversation between Li Zixuan and Pang Feiji at the door. However, hearing was one thing. She wouldn't interrupt. At this time, there were only the two of them in the room. Only then did she ask. Li Zixuan pretended to be relaxed and laughed. "Haha, nothing big. Wife, let's rest." Han Yushi looked at Li Zixuan suspiciously. She always felt that things weren't as simple as Li Zixuan said. However, with her understanding of Li Zixuan, if Li Zixuan didn't want to say something, it would be useless even if she asked more. Therefore, she could only suppress the doubts in her heart and nodded. "Okay." After saying that, she turned to tidy up the bed. At this time, Li Zixuan secretly sighed. Naturally, things weren't as simple as he said. Otherwise, the people in Qingzhou wouldn't have rushed over 800 miles to send a letter. However, what was the use of saying such things? It would only increase the worry of one person. There were changes in Qingzhou. Chapter 1675. The Heavenly Dragon sect's chaos has wreaked havoc in the capital. However, Qingzhou is the birthplace of the Heavenly Dragon sect. Although the head of the Heavenly Dragon sect has been executed, the remnants of the Heavenly Dragon sect in Qingzhou are still rampant. Coincidentally, the original provincial governor Zheng Qingsong has been detained and returned to the capital. Without a leader, the remnants of the Heavenly Dragon sect have become increasingly active, waiting for opportunities to wreak havoc. They have repeatedly attacked traveling merchants, causing the businesses of Qingzhou to wither and the people of Qingzhou to panic. I, Lu Ming, earnestly request that Marquis come to Qingzhou as soon as possible to preside over the overall situation, or allow me to act at my discretion and mobilize the power of the provincial government to maintain the law and order of Qingzhou. Otherwise, in the long run, Qingzhou is bound to erupt in civil unrest. I hope that Marquis will make a decision soon. Respectfully, the original provincial governor of Qingzhou, Lu Ming. Early the next morning, Li Zixuan arrived at the academy. He had someone invite Ma Zhou, who was marking exam papers, into his office and handed the secret letter he had received last night to Ma Zhou. After reading it carefully, Ma Zhou exclaimed in surprise, "Yamacho, this is a secret letter from the provincial governor of Qingzhou? It seems that there are undercurrents in Qingzhou now." "Humph. It's the original provincial governor of Qingzhou. It's not like that anymore." Li Zixuan snorted with an expressionless face. A few days ago, the Heavenly Dragon sect had rebelled and the Heavenly Dragon army had besieged Chang'an City, causing no small amount of trouble for the imperial court. If not for Li Zixuan single-handedly turning the tide, the Heavenly Dragon sect really could have directly overturned the country. After the incident, not only did Li Er heavily reward Li Zixuan, granting him a piece of land in Green Province, he also dismissed the provincial governor of Green Province, Zheng Qingsong. Because the Heavenly Dragon sect had risen in Green Province, no matter what, Zheng Qingsong, as the provincial governor of Green Province, had an undeniable responsibility. As for the other officials in Qingzhou, Li Er did not directly implicate them on a large scale. Firstly, there was no need. Secondly, this move could easily cause a commotion in Qingzhou's officialdom, especially now that Qingzhou did not have a person with enough authority to hold down the fort. Thirdly, Li Er had actually given this part of the work to Li Zishuan. After Li Zishuan gained control of Qingzhou, he would then settle accounts with some officials. Those who should be dismissed would be dismissed, and those who should be punished would be punished. Therefore, all the officials in Qingzhou, regardless of rank, were temporarily in a state of acting as their position. They had not been dismissed by the imperial edict, but once Li Zishuan had evidence, they could be dismissed or punished at any time. Therefore, it wasn't wrong for Lu Ming to be called the former governor of Qing province. Brother Ma, what do you think of this letter? After a moment of silence, Li Zishuan opened his mouth and asked again. This form of address was also very particular. Li Zishuan called Ma Zhou Brother Ma and not Mr. Ma. This meant that he and Ma Zhou were not discussing official matters of the academy, but personal matters. Speaking of which, when Li Zishuan first interacted with Ma Zhou last year, he also called Ma Zhou Brother Ma. Marquis, in my humble opinion, the content in this letter is 70% true. Ma Zhou pondered for a moment and slowly answered. He was indeed smart and immediately caught the difference in Li Zishuan's form of address. Being quick-witted, he immediately changed his role and called Li Zishuan Marquis and not Yamacho. Oh? 70% true? So, Brother Ma, you're saying that the remaining 3 points are fake? Li Zishuan narrowed his eyes and looked at Ma Zhou with interest. Ma Zhou couldn't help but sit up straight because he felt that Li Zishuan was deliberately testing him. After thinking about it, Ma Zhou shook his head. I don't dare to say whether the remaining 30% is true or false. However, the Dragon God sect is deeply rooted in Qing province. From the government to the marketplace, they have infiltrated everything. Since the former governor of Qing province, Zheng Qingsong, was in cahoots with the Dragon God sect, I don't believe that Lu Ming, as the governor of Qing province, is innocent. Clap, clap, clap. Not only do you not believe it, I don't believe it either. And I don't believe any of the officials in Qing province. Li Zishuan looked at Ma Zhou with admiration, then clapped his hands and laughed. Ma Zhou was shocked. Marquis, what do you mean by that? Li Zishuan smiled and said coldly, Brother Ma, in your opinion, if Lu Ming is hiding something from me, what is his intention? Ma Zhou frowned when he heard this. He turned his gaze to the letter on the table beside him and carefully read the contents of the letter twice. Suddenly, he seemed to have discovered something. He couldn't help but widen his eyes and say in shock, What's the matter? Military power? Could it be that Lu Ming's goal is to seize military power from you, Marquis? There was a sentence in the letter that said, or allow me to act at my discretion and mobilize the military power of the state government to maintain the law and order of Qing province. That was why Ma Zhou had such an idea. That's right. Li Zishuan's eyes narrowed and said in a deep voice, The Dragon sect has been operating in Qing province for many years, but the local government has turned a blind eye to it. It's hard to guarantee that they haven't received benefits from the Dragon sect. The original provincial governor of Qing province has been removed from his post and sent back to the capital. The Qing province officialdom is indeed without a leader and everyone is in a state of panic. Although His Majesty has ordered me to take over the position of provincial governor of Qing province, the imperial edict clearly states that it is only a remote command and not a post in Qing province. Because compared to Qing province, the war between the Great Tang and the Turks in a few months is undoubtedly more important. There are too many matters in the capital and I can't leave. I don't believe that Lu Ming doesn't know this. But he clearly knows that I can't leave, yet he still sent me such a letter. This means that he does have delusional thoughts about the military power of Qing province. Because at this time, those officials with ulterior motives are worried that I will purge the officialdom after taking over Qing province. Some of them have chosen to resign themselves to fate while others have chosen to take the initiative, such as Lu Ming. As the provincial governor of Qing province, he must have deep connections in Qing province. If he controls the military power, the entire Qing province is likely to be under his control. At that time, even if I personally go to Qing province and have evidence of him colluding with the dragon sect, I'm afraid that I won't be able to do anything to him. From the moment he received the secret letter last night, Li Zixuan had been calculating the situation in Qing province. As the saying goes, the officialdom is like a battlefield. He couldn't be careless. If he thought that he could look down on the heroes of the world just because he was a transmigrator, then he definitely wouldn't have lived until now. Li Zixuan had never dared to underestimate the wisdom of the ancients. Hearing Li Zixuan's words, Ma Zhou's face gradually became serious. He pondered for a moment and said seriously, Marquis's speculation is reasonable and not impossible. Moreover, according to what the Marquis had said, the matter of the remnants of the Heavenly Dragon sect repeatedly attacking the merchants mentioned in Lu Ming's letter was either false, or he could have arranged it to create chaos in order to steal military power. From this, it seems that Qing province is indeed extremely dangerous. However, His Majesty has entrusted Marquis with an important task. At such a critical time, Marquis simply doesn't have time to go to Qing province. What should we do? At this point, Ma Zhou's expression became awkward. This matter made him feel that it was a thorny problem. Li Zixuan looked at Ma Zhou and asked seriously, Brother Ma, do you still remember your dream? Chapter 1676. Ma Zhou used to be a teaching assistant in Boizhou, but he was reprimanded by the provincial governor of Boizhou because of his drunkenness. The prideful Ma Zhou immediately lost his face and quit in a fit of anger. He simply packed his luggage and embarked on his journey to the capital to find a way to make a living. When Ma Zhou first arrived in Chang'an, it could be said that he was in the dark. Seeing that he was about to run out of money and unable to find a way to make a living, a cultured person like him would have to beg for food. Who knew that coincidentally, the Tang Daily's editorial department was recruiting scholars to write news articles. Ma Zhou, a fine steed, met his first talent scout in his life. The articles he wrote in the Tang Daily often caused a sensation in the literary circle. Soon, he became the chief manager of the Tang Daily's editorial department and attracted the attention of Li Er. Li Er was very appreciative of Ma Zhou's strategies for governing the country in the Tang Daily. He believed that Ma Zhou had the talent to stabilize the country. Li Er had once wanted to poach Ma Zhou from Li Zixuan, and Ma Zhou was about to fly up the branch and become a phoenix, becoming a courtier in one step. However, Ma Zhou did not accept Li Er's olive branch in the end, because he felt that if he stayed in the editorial department of the Tang Daily, he would be able to realize one of his dreams, a great dream to let all the scholars in the world be able to read books and let all the people in the world be able to read. Later, with Li Zixuan's improvement of papermaking, the introduction of movable type printing, and the compilation of the Tang Dictionary, the price of books that were originally incomparably expensive in de Tang's market finally dropped. Those scholars who came from poor families could finally afford to buy books. Moreover, with the de Tang Dictionary, even if ordinary people did not have the money to pay for their tuition or find a teacher, they could still rely on the Hanyu Pinyin logo in the de Tang Dictionary to recognize most of the words. It could be said that when the de Tang Dictionary was published in June or July last year, Ma Zhou's dream was actually almost fulfilled. At that time, he could actually leave de Tang Daily's editorial department and pursue the official career that all scholars dreamed of. However, after the release of the de Tang Dictionary, what followed was the official establishment of Yanhuang College. Under Li Zixuan's sincere invitation, Ma Zhou unexpectedly became a teacher of Yanhuang College. He was also the subject leader of the classics department of the college and was in charge of the teaching of the classics in the college. He was in charge of the teaching of the classics in the college for nearly a year. In the past year, Ma Zhou witnessed with his own eyes how engineering was disdained at the beginning to be accepted and worshipped by more and more people. Of course, Ma Zhou also experienced how Yanwang College's position in Datong rose step by step, being in such a wise and glorious college, experiencing the simple and pure teacher-student relationship. Ma Zhou had gradually forgotten that before he came to Chang'an City, he was actually like countless other scholars who dreamed of being in the imperial court, being recognized by the emperor, and thus becoming successful and famous. Unknowingly, Ma Zhou's dream in his heart had already become the Yanhuang College's motto: build a heart for heaven and earth, build a life for the people, inherit the lost knowledge for the past sages, and create peace for all ages. It had already become Li Zishuan's earth-shattering cry at the college's opening ceremony last year. As long as Yanhuang does not die, the Han family will not perish. Blood inscribed on the golden dagger axe, blood will never stop flowing. He had completely integrated into Yanhuang College. At this time, hearing Li Zishuan's question, Ma Zhou was silent for a long time before he finally said, "Marquis, of course I remember." Li Zishuan smiled slightly and said, "In the beginning, you trusted me and were willing to join the editorial department of Datong Daily and Chitsu Culture to help me make everyone in Datong able to read and read. Today, this goal has almost been achieved. I know that Brother Ma is ambitious and is not inferior to me in terms of strategy and wisdom. Whether it is the editorial department of Datong Daily or Yanhuang College, these places are a waste of talent for you. You once had a fierce tiger in your heart and wanted to be in the imperial court, make contributions, and make a name for yourself in history. However, you were unable to make a living and in the end, you did not even see the face of the emperor. Today, I want to release the fierce tiger in your heart and give you a good opportunity to become an official and make contributions. I wonder if Brother Ma is willing to give it a try? Become an official and make contributions? What does Marquis mean by this?" Hearing this, Ma Zhou could not help but frown and ask doubtfully. At the same time, Ma Zhou was also a little moved. After all, there was a saying that went, "Learn both civil and martial arts, and you will be able to serve the emperor." For thousands of years in China, scholars had a common dream, and that was to use the knowledge they had learned for more than 10 years in their official career and serve the emperor. Then, they would use their talents in the imperial court to realize their political ambitions and be praised by the people and make a name for themselves in history. Ma Zhou was also a scholar. In the depths of his heart, he also had a dream of becoming an official. Ha ha! This Marquis wants you to be the chief clerk of the Qingzhou provincial governor's office. What do you think? After staring at Ma Zhou for a moment, Li Zishuan suddenly laughed and said these earth-shattering words casually. "What? Marquis, you want me to be the chief clerk of the Qingzhou provincial governor's office?" When Ma Zhou heard this, he suddenly opened his eyes wide in disbelief and said, "The position of the chief clerk was first established in the Qin Dynasty. At that time, the Prime Minister and the General's office had a chief clerk, which was equivalent to the Secretary General or Chief of Staff in modern society. The chief clerk under the General could also lead the army into battle and was called the Chief Clerk of the General. The famous Ban Chao was the chief clerk of the General. In addition, the prefectures in the border areas also had a chief clerk, who was the assistant to the governor and was somewhat similar to a private advisor. To a certain extent, staff positions like senior scribe and private advisor could only be regarded as officials and not official officials. Many proud and arrogant scholars were unwilling to take up such positions. However, it also depended on the type of senior scribe. For example, the senior scribe of the provincial governor's office was basically equivalent to the second-in-command of a province. Although it didn't have direct decision-making power, it had the opportunity to influence the provincial governor's decision. The stage wasn't small, especially since the land of Qingzhou now belonged to Li Zishuan's fief. Li Zishuan was both the landlord and the provincial governor. As such, the authority of the senior scribe of the provincial governor's office in Qingzhou was even greater. As long as Li Zixuan announced to the public that he wanted to recruit a chief clerk, there would definitely be countless scholars fighting to sign up. This rare opportunity had now landed on Ma Zhou so easily. It was completely Li Zixuan opening a back door for Ma Zhou. Yes, you are the most suitable candidate for the position of chief clerk in this marquis's heart. Brother Ma, are you willing to follow this marquis to create another career? Li Zixuan nodded and looked at Ma Zhou with a serious face. Chapter 1677. Qingzhou is located in a remote corner, and the local tyrants and officials are definitely colluding with each other. Moreover, the dragon head of the dragon sect was recently killed in Chang'an, so the situation in Qingzhou is definitely complicated and treacherous. This marquis needs a sufficiently capable and trustworthy person to go to Qingzhou and stabilize the situation for the time being. Brother Ma, whether in terms of talent or intelligence, you completely meet the requirement. It all depends on whether Brother Ma is willing to lend this marquis a hand. In the principal's office of Yanwang College, Li Zixuan stood up and solemnly clasped his hands at Ma Zhou. In history, Ma Zhou had come from a humble background, but in the end, he had climbed step by step to the position of Prime Minister and become Li Er's right-hand man. His talent, strategy, and political skills were beyond doubt. Although the current situation in Qingzhou was complicated, Li Zixuan was confident that it would not be a problem for Ma Zhou. Wouldn't the future Prime Minister of the Great Tang be able to easily govern a province? Of course, Li Zixuan had never thought of tying Ma Zhou to his side forever. This would be too much of a waste of talent. Ma Zhou had the talent to become Prime Minister, so he shouldn't just be a minor official. As long as the time was right, even if Ma Zhou didn't want to enter the court as an official, Li Zixuan would recommend Ma Zhou to Li Er. In the end, Qingzhou was just a small hurdle that Li Zixuan had set up for Ma Zhou to grind experience and level up. Once Ma Zhou had accumulated a certain amount of experience as an official, it would be time for him to start the main storyline of the imperial court. In the face of Li Zixuan's solemn expression, Ma Zhou couldn't help but turn solemn. To tell the truth, he was very conflicted. On one hand, he had lived in Yanwang College and Tang daily for more than a year, and he was already used to the people and things here. He had long been deeply infatuated with everything here, and he was naturally reluctant to leave. After all, humans were not plants and could not be emotionless. But if he had to stay in Yunshan for the rest of his life, in the editorial department of Tang Daily, Ma Zhou would feel that his life was lacking something, and it would be somewhat dull and tasteless. After a long silence, Ma Zhou's originally unfocused gaze gradually became resolute. He solemnly bowed to Li Zixuan and said, "Many thanks for Marquis's appreciation. This Ma is willing to serve Marquis faithfully." Ha 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 ha. Good, good, good. Brother Ma, I was right about you. Li Zixuan looked deeply at Ma Zhou, then stepped forward and helped Ma Zhou up with both hands. He then laughed loudly and said, "With Brother Ma's help, the people of Qingzhou will live a good life in the near future. Marquis is too kind." In terms of governing the people, this Ma's insignificant ability can't compare to Marquis's. Ma Zhou shook his head and cupped his hands. This was not a deliberate compliment to Li Zixuan, but a fact. Back then, the Han family manor and Plum Village were the same as the other villages. The people didn't know what to eat, and it was estimated that they wouldn't be able to eat meat for a whole year. But in just over a year, the Han family manor and Plum Village had become one of the wealthiest villages around Chang'an. Not only did the villagers live better, but their food and clothing were also several times better than before. Almost every family had saved up a lot of money. Anyone with a discerning eye would know who the credit was. So Li Zixuan's ability to revitalize the people's lives was something that even Ma Zhou couldn't help but admire. Ha ha! Let's stop flattering each other and get back to the main topic. The situation in Qingzhou is urgent. This Marquis will personally write a letter of appointment after returning home in the afternoon, officially appointing Brother Ma as the Chief Steward of the Qingzhou Provincial Governor's Office. Chief Steward Ma, after you pack up and prepare, immediately set off for Qingzhou. Li Zixuan first smiled, then looked at Ma Zhou seriously. The Chief Steward Ma was only a subordinate of the provincial governor, so the appointment of the Chief Steward Ma didn't need to be reported to the imperial court, nor did it need Li Zixuan's approval. Li Zixuan alone could make the decision. Hearing the words, Chief Steward Ma, from Li Zixuan's mouth, Ma Zhou couldn't help but feel a little emotional. The poor kid who came to Chang, alone from Bo province and had nothing, was now the chief steward of the provincial governor's office? This made Ma Zhou feel a little dreamy and unreal. Of course there's no problem on my side. But after I leave, what about the Academy's economics department and the Tang Daily's editorial department? Ma Zhou recovered from his absent-mindedness and frowned as he asked hesitantly. Li Zixuan thought for a while and said, "This is easy. For the Academy, let Mr. Kong Gui be the head of the economics department. With old Mr's knowledge, there shouldn't be a problem. As for the Tang Daily's editorial department, let Little Fishy be there first. If I have time, I'll go and take a look. Then I'm relieved. I'll be able to leave in the next 2 days." Ma Zhou heard and nodded. Then he suddenly thought of something. After a moment of hesitation, he said, "Since I came back from the north, Little Fishy seems to have become a little quiet. I've asked a few times, but I didn't get anything. This girl worships Marquis very much. If you have time, Marquis, you should go and take a look." Li Zixuan's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly remembered Li Yu's strange behavior at the Longmen Pass. After a while, he nodded and said, "Okay. I'll find time to talk to her." Ma Zhou heard and heaved a sigh of relief. He said, "That's good. That's good." Although he often bickered with Li Yu, Ma Zhou liked this clever girl very much. He treated Li Yu as his own little sister. Last time, Li Yu went to the north alone without a word. After that, she came back in low spirit. Naturally, Ma Zhou saw all of this. However, there were some things that Li Yu didn't want to tell him. He couldn't do anything about it. Also, Officer Ma, you should pay more attention to your safety when you go to Qingzhou. Li Zixuan thought for a moment, then added, "When you go to Qing province, I'll send a few guards to go with you. When you get there, you'll be able to mobilize all the provincial troops within Qing province with my warrant and the Tiger Tally. Since Lu Ming wrote to me to ask for military authority, it means that the provincial troops in Qingzhou are not completely under his control. This is our chance. Of course, just in case, Officer Ma, you should bring a telegraph machine to Qingzhou. If there are any changes in the situation, send a telegraph to me at any time." Ma Zhou's trip to Qingzhou was, of course, dangerous. After all, he was going there to replace the position of Lu Ming, the provincial governor of Qingzhou. Li Zixuan and Lu Ming were direct enemies. Lu Ming had been an official in Qingzhou for many years and definitely had a lot of connections. If he was driven to desperation, he might really do something to Ma Zhou. Therefore, Li Zixuan had to consider everything carefully. However, it didn't mean that Ma Zhou would die. At the very least, the provincial troops in Qingzhou were still very likely to be used by Li Zixuan and Ma Zhou. After all, with the consolidation of the Tang Dynasty's political power and Li Er's series of ruthless methods since he ascended the throne, everyone knew that the current imperial court was invincible. Only death awaited those who wanted to rebel. Yozhou's Luo Yi and the Dragon Sect were examples. Lu Ming was just a minor provincial governor. It was impossible for him to completely control all the provincial troops in Qingzhou during the period when the provincial governor Zheng Qingsong was captured. As long as he could control the military power as soon as possible, Ma Zhou's safety in Qingzhou would be guaranteed. The rest was to slowly stabilize the political situation and eliminate the dregs and scum in Qingzhou's officialdom. Ma Zhou was greatly touched by these words. He couldn't help but cup his hands and say, "Thank you for your trust, Marquis. I will do my best and not disappoint Marquis's high expectations." To completely hand over the military power of a province to one person, this trust couldn't be said to be small. Li Zixuan smiled and said, "This Marquis previously said that this Marquis doesn't trust any of the officials in Qingzhou, but Brother Ma, this Marquis has complete and unreserved trust in you. Go ahead and do it. First, help this Marquis stabilize the situation in Qingzhou. When this Marquis is free, he will personally make a trip to Qingzhou." Ma Zhou was moved and said, "Yes, Marquis." The two looked at each other and smiled. Li Zixuan patted Ma Zhou's shoulder and said heroically, "Haha. Then let's do something big in Qingzhou." After discussing the matters in Qingzhou with Ma Zhou, Li Zixuan went to the offices of the various disciplines. His main purpose was to look at the situation of the examination papers from yesterday. In addition, he also gathered Yen Silu and a few other discipline team leaders for a small meeting. They discussed the situation of Ma Zhou's appointment in Qingzhou, as well as the subsequent handover of some work. With regards to Ma Zhou's promotion, Yen Silu and the other teachers were sincerely happy for him. Some people saw from Ma Zhou that they might be able to rely on their achievements in the academy and Li Zixuan's appreciation to become an official. This made them even more motivated in their hearts, such as Su Hongji and Xiao Dian. Some people didn't care about being an official because they were already content with the status quo, such as Wang Ji and Mo Huai. Li Zixuan naturally didn't know what these teachers were thinking. However, even if he knew, he wouldn't say anything. Everyone had their own aspirations, and he respected everyone's aspirations. If these people wanted to enter the imperial court as an official, he would do his best to help. After all, these people represented Gong Shui, and this could be considered as expanding the influence of Gong Shui. After all the arrangements were completed, Li Zixuan quickly returned to the mansion in Lantian County. Then, he personally wrote a letter of resignation for Ma Zhou and stamped it with the seal of the Qingzhou provincial governor and his own personal seal. Lu Feng, immediately send this item to Yunshan and personally hand it to Mr. Ma Zhou, understand? Li Zixuan came to the front yard and summoned the guard Lu Feng. The situation in Qingzhou absolutely couldn't be allowed to deteriorate any further. When Li Er handed Qingzhou over to Li Zixuan, it was mainly to let Li Zixuan pacify the influence of the Heavenly Dragon sect on Qingzhou as soon as possible and lead the local people to live a better life. If it wasn't for the upcoming Kingdom War, Li Zixuan would have personally made a trip to Qingzhou. Yes, Marquis. Lu Feng took the package that Li Zixuan handed over. He responded and immediately turned to leave the residence. Chapter 1678. After sending someone to deliver the letter of appointment to Ma Zhou, Li Zixuan sat alone in the study room and closed his eyes to think. Due to the complex of modern people, he had always wanted to be a big landlord. Therefore, he was very happy every time he received a piece of land. Moreover, he would very seriously manage his land, such as the Han Village, Plum Village, Liujia Village, and so on. When he saw that the people in his land had enough food and clothing and lived in peace and contentment, Li Zixuan's heart was filled with a sense of accomplishment. However, Li Zixuan had thrown such a big mess in Qingzhou to him. Not only did this not give Li Zixuan any sense of accomplishment, but it also made him feel unusually tired. After all, there were too many problems that had to be considered when governing a state, let alone a poor and remote place like Qing State. Li Zixuan did not major in management in university. It was normal for him to feel uncomfortable when he suddenly received such a big mess. However, it was fortunate that he had Ma Zhou, the future Prime Minister of Tang Empire, to help him. Otherwise, He was afraid that he would not have any countermeasures to deal with the emergency situation in Qingzhou. Marquis, there is a letter from Qizhou. Please take a look. While he was deep in thought, Pang Feiji's voice suddenly came from outside the door. Li Zixuan immediately came back to his senses. His heart moved, and he said in a deep voice, "Come in." Yes. With a creak, Pang Feiji pushed open the door from the outside and entered. Then, he carefully closed the door. After everything was done, Pang Feiji held a lacquered envelope with both hands. He quickly walked to Li Zixuan and said, "Marquis, this is a letter from the Qizhou Provincial Governor's office." Qizhou Provincial Governor's office? Wang Renbiao? Let me take a look. Li Zixuan stared blankly for a moment before hastily replying. Although Wang Renbiao was born in an aristocratic family, he did not have the bad habit of being unruly and unruly. He got along very well with Li Zixuan. Moreover, in the battle at Longmen Pass not long ago, if Wang Renbiao had not taken the risk of being impeached and recruited elite soldiers without authorization to come to the rescue, Longmen Pass might have fallen, and Li Zixuan, who was heavily injured at that time, might have died under the hooves of the Turkic wolf cavalry. This was a life-saving grace. Not to mention, before this incident, Li Zixuan and Wang Renbiao's relationship was already very good. Therefore, when he heard that it was a letter from the Qizhou Provincial Governor's office, Li Zixuan was very happy. After receiving the letter from Pang Feiji, Li Zixuan quickly opened it and read it carefully. There were lines of elegant handwriting on the letter. As the saying goes, a person's handwriting is like their handwriting. However, looking at the elegant handwriting, he knew that this letter was definitely not written by a man. Looking at the contents of the letter, it was indeed not written by a man. I, Jingchu, pay my respects to Marquis. I have not seen him for more than a month, but I have heard of Marquis's actions of going up north to exterminate the locusts and ambushing the Turkic state preceptor. Marquis is valiant and brave, just like Li Guang during the Han Dynasty. He is admirable. The beginning of the letter was a greeting, but at the same time, it also revealed the identity of the person who wrote the letter. It was Li Jingchu, and not Wang Renbiao as Li Zixuan had expected. Li Zixuan could not help but feel puzzled. He secretly wondered why Li Jingchu would write a letter to him. This was because he and Li Jingchu had never interacted directly. They had always interacted indirectly through Wang Renbiao. Could it be that something had happened to Wang Renbiao? After all, according to official history, Wang Renbiao had died in office due to illness. Thinking of this, Li Zixuan's heart suddenly sank. He hurriedly skipped the beginning of the letter and continued reading. On the 6th day of the 7th month, the eldest princess brought Provincial Governor Wang to Qizhou. Renbiao mentioned to the eldest princess about his marriage with me. When the eldest princess heard this, she was furious. She said that as a legitimate son of the Wang family, how could he fall in love with a commoner's daughter? She ordered Renbiao to break off his relationship with me. Renbiao did not agree. The eldest princess ordered the generals in the manor to expel me from the provincial governor's manor. Renbiao wanted to object, but filial piety was greater than the heavens. He could not openly contradict the eldest princess. He could only plead in every possible way and barely manage to protect me. In order to not make things difficult for Renbiao, I quietly left Yongzhou City that night. After my father was harmed by evil people, I no longer cared about matters of love. However, Renbiao took pity on me. He had done so much for me and even avenged my father's death for me. I am not made of gold and stone. How could I not be moved? I had thought that I was not worthy of the eldest son of the Wang family. I also expected that Renbiao and I would face many difficulties in the future. However, when things came to a head, the eldest princess and provincial governor Wang's determination exceeded my and Renbiao's expectations. I knew that it was impossible for me to step into the Wang family. I thought that as long as Renbiao could be happy, I would be satisfied. I originally thought that after I left Yongzhou City, I would be able to resolve this crisis. However, who knew that a few days ago, I heard rumors that Renbiao had fallen seriously ill and was bedridden again. I was extremely worried and returned to Yongzhou City. I wanted to visit the provincial governor's manor, but I was refused entry by the eldest princess's people. Helpless, I found Renbiao's old housekeeper and borrowed the provincial governor's manor's name to write a letter to Marquis. Marquis is Renbiao's best friend, and Renbiao is usually very respectful of Marquis. This humble girl does not have extravagant hopes that Marquis will allow this humble girl and Renbiao to be together forever. I only hope that Marquis can counsel Renbiao and help him resolve the knot in his heart so that he can recover quickly. This humble girl, Li Jingqiu, respectfully greets you. After reading the letter, Li Zishuan's expression turned grave. He thought to himself, what's bound to come has indeed come. When Li Zishuan found out that Wang Renbiao was infatuated with Li Jingqiu, he had predicted that the upper echelons of the Wang family would strongly oppose this marriage. At that time, Wang Renbiao had expressed that even if he was expelled from the Wang family because of Li Jingqiu, he was willing to accept it. At most, he would just find another way to make a living. But who knew that Wang Renbiao would be so angered by Princess Tang and that he would be bedridden? Furthermore, from the looks of it, he was currently under house arrest. Otherwise, he would definitely have chased after Li Jingqiu when she left Yong City. In addition, at Longmen Pass, Leng Yuyao, who had accompanied Wang Renbiao, had secretly mentioned to Li Zishuan that the elders of the Wang family already knew about the matter between Wang Renbiao and Li Jingqiu. At that time, Li Zishuan did not take it to heart. In his opinion, Wang Yu was the head of the Wang family. No matter how vicious a tiger was, it would not harm its own child. At most, it would take away some of the political resources that the Wang family had invested in Wang Renbiao, so that Wang Renbiao would not be able to continue his smooth-sailing career in the government. But who would have thought that these two elders would want to torture their own son to death? In the end, he had overestimated the importance of kinship in the aristocratic families and underestimated the coldness of those people. You leave first. I'll write a reply. Call Xiao Shi in to grind the ink. After a long silence, Li Zishuan raised his head and ordered. Yes, Marquis. Pang Feiji bowed and accepted the order. Just as he walked out, the door to the study was pushed open with a creak. It was Han Yushi, who had walked in with a cup of tea. Husband, this concubine just heard that you wanted to write a letter. How about I grind the ink for you? Chapter 1679. Wife, you're here. In the study of the Marquis's mansion, Li Zishuan forced a smile and greeted Han Yushi when he saw her push open the door and enter. I heard that you went into the study after returning and didn't come out for a long time, so I made a pot of tea and brought it over to quench your thirst. Han Yushi placed the tray with the teacup on the table beside Li Zishuan. Then, she saw that Li Zishuan seemed to have something on his mind, so she asked tentatively, Husband, did something happen? Li Zishuan shook his head and sighed. Ai. Yes. A pair of ill-fated mandarin ducks. Since you're here, please help your husband grind the ink. Ill-fated mandarin ducks. Yes. Husband. Han Yushi didn't understand, but she saw that Li Zishuan didn't seem to think much about it, so she didn't ask further. Instead, she came to the table and began to grind the ink for Li Zishuan. In fact, although Li Zishuan knew how to write with a brush, he didn't use a brush to write. After all, he wasn't used to it. Of course, the most important thing was that the workshop at Chitsu Pavilion had already made pencils and promoted their use in the academy. With such a convenient writing tool like a pencil, why would he use a brush? Wouldn't he be suffering? But this time, Li Zishuan had a reason to use a brush. Because he wasn't writing to Wang Renbiao, but to Wang Yu and Princess Tang, and writing with a brush looked more formal than writing with a pencil. This matter concerned his good brother's lifetime happiness, so Li Zixuan didn't dare to be careless. "Wife, you're here." In the study of the Marquis's mansion. Seeing Han Yushi push open the door and enter, Li Zixuan forced a smile and greeted her. This concubine heard that husband went into the study after returning home and didn't come out for a long time, so this concubine brewed a pot of tea and brought it over to quench your thirst. Han Yushi placed the tray with the teacups on the table beside Li Zixuan. Then, she saw that Li Zixuan seemed to have something on his mind, so she asked tentatively, "Husband, did something happen?" Li Zixuan shook his head and sighed. "That's right. A pair of ill-fated mandarin ducks. Since my wife is here, help your husband grind the ink." "Unfortunate couple." "Yes, husband." Han Yushi was naturally puzzled when she heard this, but she saw that Li Zixuan did not seem to think too much about it, so she did not get to the bottom of it. Instead, she came to the side of the desk and began to grind the ink for Li Zixuan. In fact, although Li Zixuan knew how to write with a brush, he had long stopped writing with a brush. After all, he was not used to it. Of course, the most important thing was that the workshop of Chitsu Pavilion had long made pencils and promoted their use in the academy. With such a convenient writing tool like a pencil, why would he use a brush? Wouldn't it be torture? However, this time, Li Zixuan had a reason to use a brush. Because he was not writing to Wang Renbiao, but to Wang Yu and Princess Tang. Writing with a brush looked more formal than writing with a pencil. This matter concerned his good brother's lifetime happiness, so Li Zixuan did not dare to be careless. "Wife, you're here." In the study of the Marquis's mansion. Seeing Han Yushi push open the door and enter, Li Zixuan forced a smile and greeted her. "I heard that you went into your study after returning home and did not come out for a long time. So, I made a pot of tea and brought it over to quench your thirst." Han Yushi placed the tray with the teacup on the table beside Li Zixuan. Then, she saw that Li Zixuan seemed to have something on his mind, so she asked tentatively, "Husband, did something happen?" Li Zixuan shook his head and sighed. "Yes. A pair of ill-fated mandarin ducks. Since you're here, please help your husband grind the ink." "Ill-fated mandarin ducks." "Yes, husband." Han Yushi was naturally puzzled when she heard this, but when she saw that Li Zixuan did not seem to think too much about it, she did not probe further. Instead, she came to the side of the desk and began to grind ink for Li Zixuan. In fact, although Li Zixuan knew how to write with a brush, he had long stopped writing with a brush. After all, he was not used to it. Of course, the most important thing was that the workshop of Chitsu Pavilion had long made pencils and promoted their use in the academy. Why would he use a brush when he had a convenient writing tool like a pencil? Wouldn't it be torture? However, this time, Li Zixuan had a reason to use a brush. Because he was not writing to Wang Renbiao, but to Wang Yu and Princess Tang. Writing with a brush looked more formal than writing with a pencil. This matter concerned his good brother's lifetime happiness, so Li Zixuan did not dare to be careless. "Wife, you're here." In the study of the Marquis's mansion. Seeing Han Yushi push open the door and enter, Li Zixuan forced a smile and greeted her. "I heard that husband went into the study after returning home and did not come out for a long time, so I made a pot of tea and brought it over to you to quench your thirst." Han Yushi placed the tray with the teacup on the table beside Li Zixuan. Then, she saw that Li Zixuan seemed to have something on his mind, so she asked tentatively, "Husband, did something happen?" Li Zixuan shook his head and sighed. "Alas? Yes. A pair of ill-fated mandarin ducks. Since you're here, please help your husband grind the ink." "Ill-fated mandarin ducks." "Yes, husband." Han Yushi was naturally puzzled when she heard this, but she saw that Li Zixuan did not seem to think too much, so she did not get to the bottom of it. Instead, she came to the side of the desk and began to grind ink for Li Zixuan. In fact, although Li Zixuan knew how to write with a brush, he had long stopped writing with a brush. After all, he was not used to it. Of course, the most important thing was that the workshop of Chiitsu Pavilion had long made pencils and promoted their use in the academy. Why would he use a brush when he had a convenient writing tool like a pencil? Wouldn't it be torture? However, this time, Li Zixuan had a reason to use a brush. Because he was not writing to Wang Renbiao, but to Wang Yu and Princess Tang, and writing with a brush looked more formal than writing with a pencil. This matter concerned his good brother's lifetime happiness, so Li Zixuan did not dare to be careless. "Wife, you're here." In the study of the Marquis's mansion. Seeing Han Yushi push open the door and enter, Li Zixuan forced a smile and greeted her. "I heard that husband went into the study after returning home and did not come out for a long time, so I made a pot of tea and brought it over to you to quench your thirst." Han Yushi placed the tray with the teacup on the table beside Li Zixuan. Then, she saw that Li Zixuan seemed to have something on his mind, so she asked tentatively, "Husband, did something happen?" Li Zixuan shook his head and sighed. "Alas, yes. A pair of ill-fated mandarin ducks. Since you're here, please help your husband grind the ink." Ill-fated mandarin ducks. Yes. Husband. Han Yushi was naturally puzzled when she heard this, but she saw that Li Zixuan did not seem to think too much, so she did not get to the bottom of it. Instead, she came to the side of the desk and began to grind ink for Li Zixuan. In fact, although Li Zixuan knew how to write with a brush, he had long stopped writing with a brush. After all, he was not used to it. Of course, the most important thing was that the workshop of Chiitsu Pavilion had long made pencils and promoted their use in the academy. Why would he use a brush when he had a convenient writing tool like a pencil? Wouldn't it be torture? However, this time, Li Zixuan had a reason to use a brush. Because he was not writing to Wang Renbiao, but to Wang Yu and Princess Tang, and writing with a brush looked more formal than writing with a pencil. This matter concerned his good brother's lifetime happiness, so Li Zixuan did not dare to be careless. "Wife, you're here." In the study of the Marquis's mansion. Seeing Han Yushi push open the door and enter, Li Zixuan forced a smile and greeted her. "I heard that husband went into the study after returning home and did not come out for a long time, so I made a pot of tea and brought it over to you to quench your thirst." Han Yushi placed the tray with the teacup on the table beside Li Zixuan. Then, she saw that Li Zixuan seemed to have something on his mind, so she asked tentatively, "Husband, did something happen?" Li Zixuan shook his head and sighed. "Alas, yes. A pair of ill-fated mandarin ducks. Since you're here, please help your husband grind the ink." Ill-fated mandarin ducks. Yes. Husband. Han Yushi was naturally puzzled when she heard this, but she saw that Li Zixuan did not seem to think too much, so she did not get to the bottom of it. Instead, she came to the side of the desk and began to grind ink for Li Zixuan. In fact, although Li Zixuan knew how to write with a brush, he had long stopped writing with a brush. After all, he was not used to it. Of course, the most important thing was that the workshop of Chiitsu Pavilion had long made pencils and promoted their use in the academy. Why would he use a brush when he had a convenient writing tool like a pencil? Wouldn't it be torture? However, this time, Li Zixuan had a reason to use a brush. Because he was not writing to Wang Renbiao, but to Wang Yu and Princess Tang, and writing with a brush looked more formal than writing with a pencil. This matter concerned his good brother's lifetime happiness, so Li Zixuan did not dare to be careless. "Wife, you're here." In the study of the Marquis's mansion. Seeing Han Yushi push open the door and enter, Li Zixuan forced a smile and greeted her. "I heard that husband went into the study after returning home and did not come out for a long time, so I made a pot of tea and brought it over to you to quench your thirst." Han Yushi placed the tray with the teacup on the table beside Li Zixuan. Then, she saw that Li Zixuan seemed to have something on his mind, so she asked tentatively, "Husband, did something happen?" Li Zixuan shook his head and sighed. "Alas, yes. A pair of ill-fated mandarin ducks. Since you're here, please help your husband grind the ink. Ill-fated mandarin ducks. Yes, husband. Han Yushi was naturally puzzled when she heard this, but she saw that Li Zixuan did not seem to think too much, so she did not get to the bottom of it. Instead, she came to the side of the desk and began to grind ink for Li Zixuan. In fact, although Li Zixuan knew how to write with a brush, he had long stopped writing with a brush. After all, he was not used to it. Of course, the most important thing was that the workshop of Chitsu Pavilion had long made pencils and promoted their use in the academy. Why would he use a brush when he had a convenient writing tool like a pencil? Wouldn't it be torture? However, this time, Li Zixuan had a reason to use a brush. Because he was not writing to Wang Renbiao, but to Wang Yu and Princess Tang, and writing with a brush looked more formal than writing with a pencil. This matter concerned his good brother's lifetime happiness, so Li Zixuan did not dare to be careless. Wife, you're here. In the study of the Marquis's mansion. Seeing Han Yushi push open the door and enter, Li Zixuan forced a smile and greeted her. I heard that husband went into the study after returning home and did not come out for a long time, so I brewed a pot of tea and brought it to you to quench your thirst. Han Yushi placed the tray with the teacup on the table beside Li Zixuan. Then, she saw that Li Zixuan seemed to have something on his mind, so she asked tentatively, Husband, did something happen? Li Zixuan shook his head and sighed. Alas? Yes. A pair of ill-fated mandarin ducks. Since you're here, please help your husband grind the ink. Ill-fated mandarin ducks. Yes. Husband. Han Yushi was naturally puzzled when she heard this, but she saw that Li Zixuan did not seem to think too much, so she did not get to the bottom of it. Instead, she came to the side of the desk and began to grind ink for Li Zixuan. In fact, although Li Zixuan knew how to write with a brush, he had long stopped writing with a brush. After all, he was not used to it. Of course, the most important thing was that the workshop of Chitsu Pavilion had long made pencils and promoted their use in the academy. Why would he use a brush when he had a convenient writing tool like a pencil? Wouldn't it be torture? However, this time, Li Zixuan had a reason to use a brush. Because he was not writing to Wang Renbiao, but to Wang Yu and Princess Tang, and writing with a brush looked more formal than writing with a pencil. This matter concerned his good brother's lifetime happiness, so Li Zixuan did not dare to be careless. Wife, you're here. In the study of the Marquis's mansion. Seeing Han Yushi push open the door and enter, Li Zixuan forced a smile and greeted her. I heard that husband went into the study after returning home and did not come out for a long time, so I made a pot of tea and brought it over to you to quench your thirst. Han Yushi placed the tray with the teacup on the table beside Li Zixuan. Then, she saw that Li Zixuan seemed to have something on his mind, so she asked tentatively, Husband, did something happen? Li Zixuan shook his head and sighed. Alas? Yes. A pair of ill-fated mandarin ducks. Since you're here, please help your husband grind the ink. Ill-fated mandarin ducks. Yes. Husband. Han Yushi was naturally puzzled when she heard this, but when she saw that Li Zixuan did not seem to think too much about it, she did not probe further. Instead, she came to the side of the desk and began to grind ink for Li Zixuan. In fact, although Li Zixuan knew how to write with a brush, he had long stopped writing with a brush. After all, he was not used to it. Of course, the most important thing was that the workshop of Chitsu Pavilion had long made pencils and promoted their use in the academy. Why would he use a brush when he had a convenient writing tool like a pencil? Wouldn't it be torture? However, this time, Li Zixuan had a reason to use a brush. Because he was not writing to Wang Renbiao, but to Wang Yu and Princess Tang, and writing with a brush looked more formal than writing with a pencil. This matter concerned his good brother's lifetime happiness, so Li Zixuan did not dare to be careless. Wife, you're here. In the study of the Marquis's mansion. Seeing Han Yushi push open the door and enter, Li Zixuan forced a smile and greeted her. I heard that husband went into the study after returning home and did not come out for a long time, so I made a pot of tea and brought it over to you to quench your thirst. Chapter 1680. If you want to kill Li Zixuan's brother and sworn sister, then you have to be prepared to pay the corresponding price. The Wang family is no exception. As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere in the study suddenly became austere. At this moment, Li Zixuan had the power to move unhindered and was invincible in the world. He didn't even put the Wang clan, which was ranked at the top of the 5 families and 7 great clans, in his eyes. He was extremely arrogant. However, he did have the right to be arrogant. Back then, the prestigious Chui family of Qinghe, Chui family of Bowling, and Jing family of Xingyang had all been directly or indirectly destroyed by him. At that time, Li Zixuan did not have the prestige, power, and status that he had today. Now, he was not only a marquis, but also the provincial governor of a province. His foundation was deeper and his strength was stronger. Of course, his destructive power was even more shocking. The Wang family valued the family's interests and could ignore Wang Renbiao's life. However, they had to consider whether they could withstand Li Zixuan's revenge after Wang Renbiao's death. This was the attitude that Li Zixuan wanted to convey to Wang Yu and Princess Tang. This concubine naturally understands husband's feelings, but won't this displease Provincial Governor Wang and Princess Tang? After all, there are many words in this letter that seem a little. After a moment of shock, Han Yushi recovered from her shock. She smoothed the hair in front of her chest and looked at Li Zixuan with a worried expression. Seems a little arrogant, right? Li Zixuan smiled and completed Han Yushi's unfinished words. Then, he snorted and said, This will depend on how Provincial Governor Wang and Princess Tang weigh the pros and cons. Will they continue to break up the affectionate couple and fall out with me, or will they let them go and do me a favor? Renbiao and I are as close as brothers, but I still have important matters to attend to. This is all I can do. If not, I will personally make a trip to Qizhou. After that, Li Zixuan folded the 2 pieces of paper and put them in an envelope. After he finished painting it, he shouted at the door, Feiji, come in! With a creak, Pang Feiji, who had been waiting outside the door for a long time, hurriedly pushed the door open and entered. Li Zixuan handed over the letter and instructed, Arrange for someone to deliver this letter to the Qizhou Provincial Governor's manor as soon as possible and personally hand it over to Provincial Governor Wang Yu. Yes, Marquis. Pang Feiji bowed and accepted the order. Then, he took the letter and left. Only Li Zixuan and Han Yushi were left in the study. Li Zixuan picked up the teacup that Han Yushi had just brought in. Although the tea was a little cold, it was still fragrant when he placed it at the tip of his nose and sniffed it. Li Zixuan took a sip. Husband, you mentioned that you have an important matter to attend to. Is it the matter of going to the Black Armored Army's camp in 2 days? Yes, that's right. Li Zixuan put down the teacup and nodded. Although Renbiao's situation is critical, there might be other solutions. Now that the kingdom war is imminent, at such a crucial time, nothing can be compared to the preparation for the Turkic Khaganate. This concerns the lives of millions of people in the Tang Empire. We can't be careless. Hearing this, Han Yushi instantly fell silent. She understood the affairs of the country and the people of the world. But now, her loved ones were about to embark on an extremely difficult and dangerous path for the so-called people of the world. This was a little hard for her to accept. However, when she thought of Wang Renbiao and Li Jingqiu, this pair of ill-fated lovers, Han Yushi felt that she was extremely lucky and happy. At least she could be together with the person she loved. Moreover, after marriage, her parents-in-law treated her very well. There had never been any discord between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law that occurred in ordinary wealthy families. So, what else was she not satisfied with? Husband, don't worry and go. I will take care of the house. After a moment of silence, Han Yushi spoke. Since there were some things that she couldn't stop, she could only wholeheartedly support Li Zixuan and not let Li Zixuan have any worries. Yes. Haha. With my wife's words, your husband can rest assured. Li Zixuan hugged the beauty beside him and chuckled. Sigh. Why do we have to stay in the academy for the makeup exams when everyone else is on vacation? Moreover, we only have 1 or 2 days to prepare. How can our exam results be good? Yunshan, Yanwang College. Ching Chumo, who had just come out of the cafeteria after lunch, kicked the pebbles on the road listlessly and grumbled softly. All right. Chonyo. Don't complain. Take the time to rest when we get back to the dormitory and continue with our revision. Li Ku, who was walking half a body's length in front of Ching Chumo, paused and looked at Ching Chumo. I should be able to finish the rest of my revision this afternoon. Then, I will help you with your revision. Little Ku, you're the best. No. Little Ku, you're done with your revision so quickly? Ching Chumo couldn't help but chuckle when he heard that. Then, he realized that something was wrong. He couldn't help but widen his eyes and exclaim in surprise. He had just started his revision yesterday, and Li Ku was about to finish it today. This was really a case of comparing people to people and goods to goods. Haha. What's so strange about that? Li Ku chuckled and said casually, Actually, before we went to the north, I had already started revising my homework and preparing for the exam. During the days we were in the north, we were on the road during the day, and before we rested at night, I would usually read for 1 to 4 hours. *CK. I was wondering why the lights in your room went out so late every night. Little Ku, why didn't you tell me earlier? Ching Chumo slapped his head and suddenly realized something. Then, he said with a hurt face. It was as if he was blaming a good friend for studying secretly without telling him. Those who didn't know the truth would probably praise him for being a good student who loved studying. Hearing that, Li Ku looked at Ching Chumo and said, Chonyo, even if I told you earlier, would you really be able to calm down and study in advance and prepare for your exams? Ching Chumo was stunned. What Li Ku said did make sense. Even if he was given a chance to choose again, he would not study and prepare for exams while he was on his way to the north to kill locusts. There was no other way. He was born to be active. Little Ku, don't hit people in the face and don't expose people's shortcomings when scolding them. You're not being nice. Ching Chumo was embarrassed by Li Ku's words. He scratched his head and couldn't help but say, All right, Brother Chonyo, there's no point in arguing about this now. I think we should go back to the school and rest. I'm almost done with my revision. If you need me in the afternoon, I can help you with your homework. Tai Dan smiled and said, Don't worry. Haha. That's great. Iron Egg, you're a good brother. After the exams, Old Ching, will treat you to a drink at 100 Flowers Tower. When Ching Chumo heard this, he immediately burst into laughter. 100 Flowers Tower, wasn't it a brothel? This idiot wanted to bring Iron Egg, who was not even 20 years old, to a brothel. Tai Dan was no longer the poor country boy he used to be. Naturally, he had heard of the 100 Flowers Tower before. Therefore, he immediately blushed at Ching Chumo's words and hurriedly said, Don't worry. There's no need to drink. We're classmates, it's only right that we help each other. Yes, it's only right. Ching Chumo was instantly amused and said with a smirk, Hey! Iron Egg, you're shy. Haha. What's there to be shy about? Let me tell you, when I was 8 years old, As this idiot spoke, he couldn't help but start to brag about his heroic deeds. Meng Wenhao and Kushirqing, who had just returned from Shuzhong, couldn't help but smile when they saw this. Isn't that Qin Ke? Where is he going? When they were approaching the academy's Guanghua building, Li Ku suddenly saw Li Tai hurrying along the main road of the academy towards the gate. He couldn't help but ask in confusion. Qin Ke? That's right. Qin Ke just finished his exams a few days ago. Can't you just ask him to help with your homework? Hearing the two words, Qin Ke, Ching Chumo's eyes suddenly lit up. He smiled and immediately ran in the direction of Li Tai. As he ran, he shouted, "Hey! Qin Ke, stop! Stop!" Li Ku and the others instantly understood the reason why Ching Chumo was so enthusiastic. They couldn't help but cover their faces with their hands. It was really shameful to be associated with this guy. A moment later. "Virgin, you want me to leak the exam questions to you and help you cheat? Absolutely impossible." Ching Chumo's intention was actually very simple. He just wanted Li Tai to recall the questions of the final exam from a few days ago. Then, he would be prepared for the make-up exam the day after tomorrow. But how could Li Tai help him do such a shameful thing? After understanding the situation, Li Tai rejected Ching Chumo's offer without hesitation and said, "Don't worry. Virgo, I advise you to give up on this idea. First, no one in the academy will help you recall the exam questions. Second, your exam papers this time may not be the same as ours. Instead of thinking about this, it's better to take the time to revise." Ching Chumo pursed his lips and whispered, "It's fine if you don't want to help. If the make-up exam questions are not the same as yours, will Yamacho come up with another set of exam questions?" Li Tai rolled his eyes and couldn't be bothered with this idiot. At this time, Li Ku asked, "Qin Ke, I saw you in a hurry just now. Where are you going?" "To the workshop." Li Tai turned to look at Li Ku and replied, "Actually, I've been studying something new recently. I encountered some problems before, but after some guidance from Yamacho 2 days ago, I already know how to solve it. I want to take advantage of the time before Yamacho leaves Yunshan to make a sample for him to see." "New thing? Qin Ke, what is this new thing that you're so interested in?" Li Ku was naturally envious of Li Tai's personal guidance from Li Zixuan, but he was undoubtedly more curious about the new thing that Li Tai mentioned, so he couldn't help but ask. "It's a tool that can transmit sound over a long distance. Simply put, it means that no matter how far apart two people are, they can talk and listen to each other through this tool." Li Tai looked around and after seeing that there was no one around, he replied, "Long-distance transmission? You can make such a godly object, Qin Ke? That's amazing." When Li Ku heard this, he couldn't help but open his eyes wide and exclaim. Not only him, but Ching Chumo, Iron Egg, Meng Wenhao, Kushirqing, and the others all looked at Li Tai in disbelief. This was because before this, they had never even thought of building such a long-distance sound transmission tool. Cough cough. Lower your voice. Lower your voice. Although the telephone was not part of the Academy's trump card project, its research had always been carried out in secret. Seeing Li Tai's surprised face, Li Tai hurriedly said with a nervous expression, "That thing hasn't been completed yet. It's only in the experimental stage. In theory, it's feasible, but in reality, there are still many problems. Fortunately, Yamacho has provided me with some ideas to solve the problems. I've been busy modifying that thing for the past 2 days." Li Ku heard this and exclaimed, "So, Qin Ke, the godly object that you mentioned just now, in theory, can really be made?" "Yes, that's right. In theory, it is indeed feasible." Li Tai nodded solemnly. Li Ku, Iron Egg, and the others couldn't help but look at each other. They could see the deep shock in each other's eyes. "Qin Ke, you're really amazing now. If that godly object of yours is completed, you must show it to us first." After a moment of silence, Li Ku couldn't help but exclaim, "Yes, yes, yes. If this thing is completed, I'll be the first to try it." Ching Chumo also excitedly echoed, "Haha. Of course, that's not a problem." Li Tai nodded with a smile. "All right. Qin Ke, you said that you want to make it before Yamacho leaves Yunshan. What does that mean? Could it be that Yamacho has plans to travel abroad recently?" Kushirqing asked at this time. Chapter 1681. Uncle Ma, I heard you were looking for me? The next morning, in the new workshop of the interesting pavilion, in a room in the editorial department of Tang Daily, Li Yu knocked on the door and entered. She asked Ma Zhou softly, who was standing in front of the window with his hands behind his back. In the academy, people called Ma Zhou Mr. Ma. In the workshop, people called Ma Zhou Caretaker Ma or Old Ma. In fact, Li Yu was probably the only person who called Ma Zhou Uncle Ma. Ma Zhou was against this form of address at first because he felt that he was not that old. However, after a long time, Ma Zhou was used to this form of address given by Li Yu. At this moment, he turned around and smiled kindly at Li Yu. Little Yu, you're here? Sit down and talk. As he spoke, he pointed at a chair opposite his desk. Li Yu never knew how to write the word restraint in front of Ma Zhou. Hearing this, she did not stand on ceremony and directly sat on the chair. Then, she said half-jokingly, Uncle Ma, seeing how serious you are, could it be that you called me here today because of my good performance in the past year and you want to increase my salary? Of course, this was a joke. Li Yu and Ma Zhou's relationship had always been good. The two of them often joked about similar things. However, what Li Yu did not expect was that Ma Zhou, who had just sat opposite her, actually nodded. Yes, little Yu, you guessed it right. I called you here today to increase your salary. Li Yu couldn't help but stare with her eyes wide open when she heard this. She really suspected that there was something wrong with her ears, or perhaps there was something wrong with Ma Zhou's head. Otherwise, how could he have heard such shocking and unreasonable words? Uncle Ma, you're not kidding me, are you? I don't have the time to play with you. I haven't finished my draft for today. After a moment of shock, Li Yu pouted and said with some dissatisfaction. Obviously, she didn't take Ma Zhou's words seriously. Unexpectedly, Ma Zhou said with a serious face, Little Yu, I'm not joking with you. Over the past year, you've gone from knowing nothing about news writing to becoming the gold medal reporter of Tang Daily. All of us have seen the effort you've put in and the results you've achieved. Marquis and I do want to increase your salary. Not only that, but Marquis also plans to let you slowly take over the affairs of Tang Daily. In time, perhaps the entire Tang Daily editorial department will be handed over to you. What? Sir, you want me to take over the editorial department? When Li Yu heard that, she almost jumped out of her chair. She said in disbelief, But I was only in charge of writing the news. Weren't you always in charge of the editorial department? Why would Sir make such an arrangement? Li Yu was actually very satisfied with her current life. Every day, she would go out to gather information and write a few news articles. Every month, she would have a decent income. Occasionally, she would even be able to expose some illegal activities among the people, punishing evil and promoting good. This life was really fulfilling and valuable. As for Ma Zhou's position in the editorial department of Tang Daily, Li Yu wasn't very interested. I was in charge of the editorial department before, but I'm leaving Lantian County soon. Seeing Li Yu's excited face, Ma Zhou said in a low voice. Leaving Lantian County? Why? Could it be that, sir? When Li Yu heard that, her heart skipped a beat. Her face suddenly showed a trace of worry. She subconsciously thought that Ma Zhou had done something wrong recently, so Li Zishuan wanted to remove Ma Zhou from his position in the editorial department. What kind of person was Ma Zhou? How could he not see through Li Yu's thoughts? He quickly waved his hand and said, Little Yu, don't misunderstand. I'm leaving Lantian County because I have more important things to do. Marquis is now the provincial governor of Qingzhou, but there's still a lot of work in the capital. So, Marquis appointed me as the chief secretary of Qingzhou provincial governor's residence and asked me to go to Qingzhou to take over the affairs there. This afternoon, I'm leaving. So that's the case. When Li Yu heard that, she couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Then, she smiled and said, Then I should congratulate Uncle Ma for being promoted. When I have time to go to Qingzhou, Uncle Ma, as a local snake, you have to treat me well. When he heard that sentence, Ma Zhou couldn't help but twitch his mouth. This girl really didn't know how to use words. He was going to be the chief secretary of Qingzhou provincial governor's residence in the future. How could he be called a local snake? But how can I manage the entire editorial department by myself? How can I have that ability? At this moment, Liu remembered what Ma Zhou said at the beginning and couldn't help but speak out hesitantly. Ma Zhou smiled and said, "Of course, your current ability isn't enough to manage the entire editorial department. So, Marquis only asked you to slowly take over and familiarize yourself with it. Currently, the editorial department should be directly managed by Marquis. Also, don't you have Yu Shaojian and the others to help you on normal days?" De Tang Daily had become the official mouthpiece of the imperial court. Naturally, there was no lack of supervision from the imperial court. Last year, Li Er sent a few scholars with both ability and integrity to enter De Tang Daily's editorial department to review and supervise the contents of the daily newspaper. After more than a year of interaction, the editors in the editorial department and these scholars got along very well. There wasn't any hostility and instead, they often helped each other. "Oh, all right then. I'll give it a try." Liu thought for a while and finally nodded her head to accept this task. It wasn't that she was greedy for money. The salary she received every month was more than enough for her. It was mainly because she was grateful to Li Zixuan and Ma Zhou for taking care of her for the past year. She wanted to share the burden of Li Zixuan and Ma Zhou. If that's the case, then I'm relieved." Ma Zhou let out a sigh of relief and smiled. After a pause, he said, "Little Yu, I know that you've been looking for the whereabouts of your parents. Marquis and I will do our best to help you find them. But this kind of thing can't be rushed. Maybe when the time comes, your parents will automatically appear in front of you. Don't be depressed because of this." Although Li Yu's face was full of smiles, the attentive Ma Zhou could still see a faint trace of worry between Li Yu's brows. He had always treated Li Yu as his own sister. Before he left, of course, he was still a little worried. Hearing this, Li Yu suddenly became silent. Her expression changed. In the end, she forced a smile and said, "Uncle Ma, look at what you're saying. How can I be depressed? Aren't I fine right now? Oh right, you're going to Qingzhou alone. You should be careful. I'm still waiting for you to gain a foothold there, and then go to Qingzhou to play." Ma Zhou sighed helplessly and said, "You don't have to worry about my safety. This time, Marquis will send some guards to go with me. Little you take care." After saying this, he stood up and walked out of the room with his hands behind his back. Li Yu quickly stood up and shouted at Ma Zhou, "Uncle Ma, you take care too. Yu Yao, how's Rinbiao? Still not eating?" Qizhou, Yong County, front hall of the provincial governor's mansion. Wang Yu and a well-dressed woman with a graceful temperament were sitting at the head of the table. Looking at Ling Yuyao, who was standing in the hall, Wang Yu asked with a cold face. Ling Yuyao's face was as cold as usual. Hearing Wang Yu's question, she slightly bowed and said, "Master, young master said he can't eat." Can't eat?" Hearing this, the noblewoman sitting next to Wang Yu was instantly enraged. She slammed the table and said angrily, "I think he's been bewitched by that little vixen. For that bitch, he doesn't care about anyone. Master and I have nurtured him for so many years, but he actually treats us like enemies for that bitch. How unfilial." That's right, this woman was Li Er's aunt and the current eldest princess of Tang Dynasty, Princess Tang, and she was also Wang Renbiao's birth mother and the current matriarch of the Wang family of Tun. "Madam, calm down. Madam, calm down." Seeing Princess Tong An's rage, Wang Yu quickly played the role of the good guy. He had no choice. Although he was the current patriarch of the Wang family of Taiyuan, the current emperor intended to weaken the power of the aristocratic families. The Chui clan of Qinghe, the Chui clan of Bowling, and the Zheng clan of Xingyang had been wiped out by the imperial court. The imperial power was now unprecedentedly strong. If the Wang family of Taiyuan wanted to continue its glory, they had no choice but to submit to the imperial family. Princess Tang was a relative of the imperial family. At this juncture, even Wang Yu, the patriarch of the Wang family, did not dare to offend Princess Tang and Humph. Calm down, calm down. How can I calm down? It's all because of your good son. We've nurtured him for more than a decade, but in the end, in his eyes, we're not even comparable to a lowly woman outside. Princess Tang did not give Wang Yu any face as she bellowed in front of all the servants. She was an ambitious woman. Although she was the eldest princess of the imperial court, once a woman married off, she was like spilled water. Sometimes the imperial family could support her, but if she wanted to maintain a stable position in a large clan like the Wang family, other than the imperial family's support, she had to rely on her own efforts. Wang Renbiao was the key to maintaining her unshakable position in the Wang family. Thus, she had spared no effort in nurturing Wang Renbiao. However, she had never imagined that the eldest son of the Wang family, Wang Renbiao, would fall in love with the daughter of a commoner merchant. If news of this got out, Wang Renbiao would probably become the laughingstock of all the aristocratic families. After all, although the 5 surnames and 7 hopes were no longer as glorious as they were in the past, the bloodlines of aristocratic families were still noble and unattainable. In the imperial court, countless civil and military officials hoped that they or their descendants could marry a descendant of the 5 surnames and 7 hope. This was especially true for Wang Renbiao, who not only possessed the bloodline of the Wang family of Taiyuan, but also the blood of the imperial family. His bloodline was noble. Now that Wang Renbiao wanted to marry a commoner, this was a stain on the bloodline of the aristocratic families. The other clans of the 5 surnames and 7 hopes would ridicule him, and the elders of the Wang family would not let him off. In the end, Wang Renbiao might be marginalized by the Wang family. In the future, the Wang family would not give Wang Renbiao any resources, much less any help. This caused Princess Tang's many years of planning and management to go up in smoke. It was said that a mother's status depended on her son. If Wang Renbiao could not provide her with a strong political foundation, as his mother, even if she had the status of a princess, she would soon be removed from the center of power in the Wang family. Therefore, after learning about Wang Renbiao and Li Jingqiu, Princess Tang flew into a rage and brought her husband to kill their way from Suizhou to Qizhou. In the main hall, Wang Yu had an embarrassed look on his face. He was truly helpless against the furious Princess Tang, and since he wants that bitch so much, I'll have someone tie her up and throw her into the river to feed the fish. Let's see if he's still willing to eat. After a pause, Princess Tang finally made up her mind. She stood up angrily and said to Leng Yuyao, "Leng Yuyao, take someone to that bitch's house and tie her up for me." This. Leng Yuyao was shocked. She was envious and jealous of Li Jingqiu, but she knew that Wang Renbiao truly liked Li Jingqiu. As long as Wang Renbiao liked someone, whether it was a friend or a love rival, she would do her best to protect them. However, Princess Tang had ordered her to kill Li Jingqiu. Leng Yuyao was against this order from the bottom of her heart. Moreover, she knew that if Li Jingqiu died like this, Wang Renbiao would not continue living and would not forgive her even in death. "Madam, you mustn't." Before Leng Yuyao could say anything, Wang Yu could no longer sit still. He hurriedly stood up to dissuade her. "Madam, Li Jingqiu is just a commoner. She didn't steal or rob, nor did she commit any crimes. As an official of the imperial court, how can I let anyone take her away as they please? No matter what, this is still a human life." In a feudal society, there was naturally darkness everywhere. This was especially true for aristocratic families. Every month, servants and maidservants would die an unnatural death. In the eyes of the upper echelons, some human lives were indeed worthless. However, Li Jingqiu was not a slave. She was a commoner. No matter if it was an aristocratic family or an official of the imperial court, no one could casually put a commoner to death. At the very least, they could not brazenly put a commoner to death like this. Even if Li Jingqiu had committed a serious crime, Wang Yu and Princess Tang would not be able to kill her with just a few words. The imperial court was very strict when it came to the death penalty for criminals. It even required Li Er to personally review it. Therefore, once a human life was involved, Wang Yu could not sit by and do nothing. After hearing Wang Yu's words, Princess Tang knew that she had misspoken. Her phoenix eyes were filled with anger. If we can't kill her, then we'll break her legs and scratch her face. Let's see if my son will give up then. Leng Yuyao, bring some people over now. Seeing that Princess Tang was willing to listen, Wang Yu sat back down. It was fine as long as no lives were taken. This was his principle and bottom line. However, Leng Yuyao did not immediately accept the order. She remained silent for a moment before gritting her teeth and cupping her fist. Forgive me, Princess, but Yuyao cannot accept the order. The moment she said that, everyone was shocked. Princess Tang's eyes were filled with anger. She walked step by step to Leng Yuyao and said coldly, Leng Yuyao, you dare to disobey the order? Chapter 1682. If the ruler wants the subject to die, the subject has no choice but to die. This saying was used to describe the relationship between ruler and subject in feudal dynasties, but it also applied to the relationship between master and servant in this era. If the master wanted a servant to die, it was too easy. He could find a random reason to kill the servant, and the servant would not be punished by the imperial court's laws. Thus, in this era, the master was the servant's heaven. In the main hall, Princess Tang glared at Leng Yuyao, the anger and hatred in her eyes undisguised. If looks could kill, Leng Yuyao would have been riddled with holes by now. The other servants and maids in the room all kept quiet out of fear, not even daring to breathe loudly. They knew that although looks could not kill, a furious Princess Tang could very well kill someone. Your Highness, Yuyao does not dare. Leng Yuyao's heart trembled under Princess Tang's cold gaze. She got down on one knee and cupped her fist. Yuyao's life belongs to the family, so I naturally do not dare to disobey your Highness's orders. However, Li Jingqiu is young master's beloved. Shut up! Princess Tang was furious. Since you do not dare to disobey, then obediently follow this princess's orders. Pay attention to your status, there are some things that you cannot interfere in. You only need to listen to orders. Princess Tang's tone was incomparably cold. Everyone could feel that the matriarch of the Wang family of Taiyuan was on the verge of exploding with rage. Of course, no one was willing to provoke this terrifying woman at this time. Leng Yuyao didn't dare either, but she really couldn't bring herself to hurt a powerless woman, especially one that Wang Renbiao loved deeply. After a moment of silence, Leng Yuyao braced herself and gritted her teeth. Your Highness, young master is still bedridden, and Li Jingqiu is the crux of young master's illness. Please take pity on young master. Enough. Before she could finish, Princess Tang waved her sleeve and laughed in anger. Good. 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 None of you put me in your eyes. Very good. Men, drag Leng Yuyao away and give her 100 lashes. She will die. Wang Yu, who was sitting at the head of the table, was shocked when he heard this. 100 lashes was absolutely a death sentence for an ordinary person. Although Leng Yuyao was a martial artist, after being lashed 100 times, even if she didn't die, she would still lose a layer of skin. More importantly, Leng Yuyao was a secret guard that had been nurtured by the Wang family for many years. Her strength was close to that of an evolved Jing master, and she could be considered one of the top secret guards of the Wang family. If she was killed just like that, it would truly be a pity. However, Princess Tang was on the verge of exploding with rage. Wang Yu did not want to provoke her at this moment. He opened his mouth and wanted to plead for mercy, but in the end, he did not say anything. At this time, 2 strong servants immediately walked in from outside the door. They bowed and replied, "Yes, Princess." As soon as they finished speaking, the 2 of them wanted to grab Ling Yuyao's shoulders. However, Ling Yuyao stood up on her own and glanced coldly at the 2 of them. Merely this glance caused the 2 of them to feel a bone-piercing chill rise from the soles of their feet. They heard Ling Yuyao say indifferently, "There's no need for you to escort me. I'll walk on my own." After saying that, she walked out of the door. How could someone as cold and arrogant as her allow another man to touch her body? Even if she was to be punished, she wanted to be punished in a dignified manner. Humph. Seeing this, Princess Tang snorted but did not say anything. She believed that after 100 lashes, Ling Yuyao would soon be dead. As a princess, why would she bother with a dead person? Princess Tang glared at Ling Yuyao's back and called out, "Unfu! This old servant is here." An old man in his 50s immediately walked out from the servants standing by the side. This was the old servant that Princess Tang had brought over from Sui province. "Unfu, take 2 men with you to the Li family and break that bitch's limbs and disfigure her face," Princess Tang ordered coldly. "Yes, Princess." The old servant did not have the same concerns as Ling Yuyao. He bowed and turned to leave. Cough, cough, cough. Wait. Just as the old servant turned to leave and Ling Yuyao had just walked out of the main hall, a series of coughs came from outside the door, followed by a weak and slightly hurried voice. Then came Ling Yuyao's surprised and worried voice. "Young master? Why are you here?" Cough, cough. "I would have regretted it for the rest of my life if I didn't come. Yao come in with me." The person who had come was Wang Renbiao, who had been bedridden for many days. A moment later, with Ling Yuyao's help, he staggered into the main hall. Princess Tang and Wang Yu's hearts sank. Wang Renbiao's face was incomparably pale, and he looked like he was on the verge of death. Cough, cough. "Mother, father, everything is this child's fault. It has nothing to do with Yao or Jingchu. This child is willing to listen to mother's arrangements and take good care of my body. I will cut off all contact with Li Jingchu. I beg mother to let Yao and Jingchu off." Wang Renbiao broke free from Ling Yuyao's support and barely managed to stabilize himself before cupping his hands at Princess Tang and Wang Yu. "Young master," Ling Yuyao was shaken. She was well aware of Wang Renbiao's love for Li Jingchu, but Wang Renbiao was actually willing to give up on Li Jingchu. Ling Yuyao understood that Wang Renbiao was doing this mainly to save her and Li Jingchu. Cut off all contact? Now you know how to listen to me. In my view, you just want to save these 2 women. What Ling Yuyao could see, Princess Tang could as well. She sneered and mercilessly exposed Wang Renbiao's intentions, then said, "You're right. You've already lost your mind. The dignified eldest son of the Wang clan is actually going to make an enemy out of your parents over a commoner girl? Now, only by destroying that bitch can you wake up completely. And Fu, continue to do as I say." The old servant hesitated for a moment, but he still bowed and replied, "Yes, Princess." Plop! Wang Renbiao suddenly fell to his knees. He gasped for breath and said weakly, "Mother." Cough, cough. "This child has never begged you for anything since he was young. Today, this child begs you to let Jingchu and Yao go. As long as you let them go, this child is willing to listen to all your arrangements from now on." The eldest princess's expression did not soften. Instead, she became even angrier. She raised her voice and said, "You've never begged me since you were young, but now you're begging me for 2 women? Are these 2 women more important than your mother in your heart? I must destroy them today. Laifu, what are you standing there for? Take this slut away. Go and tie up Li Jingchu." Mother, don't. Pff. Wang Renbiao, who was overwhelmed with emotions, finally spat out a mouthful of blood. Young master. Ling Yuyao was anxious. She hurriedly squatted down and supported Wang Renbiao. She said with a sorrowful expression, Young master, Yuyao's life is not important. Nothing must happen to you. Wang Yu, who was sitting at the head of the table, could not help but clench his fists nervously. He stood up and looked at Princess Tang and, Madam, Biao Er's health is more important. Can we talk about other matters later? Princess Tang unpursed her lips. A trace of worry and heartache flashed through her eyes. After all, even a vicious tiger would not eat its cubs. No matter what, Wang Renbiao was the son she had carried for 10 months. Seeing Wang Renbiao like this, it would be a lie to say that she did not feel heartache. However, when she thought of how the usually obedient Wang Renbiao had disobeyed her a few days ago because of a commoner girl, the anger in her heart surged again. No. Only by destroying that slut will he wake up. Men, help the eldest young master to the backyard to rest. Laifu, do as this princess said. Princess Tang ungritted her teeth and said fiercely. This, Wang Yu opened his mouth. Just as he was about to say something, Princess Tang glared at him fiercely. Yes, princess. And Fu bowed and received the order. He then whispered to the servants around him, What are you standing there for? Take Miss Lung away. Yes. The servants immediately swarmed toward Ling Yuyao. Ling Yuyao's eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. She whispered, Young master, Yuyao will protect you as you leave. Although she was an assassin trained by the Wang family for many years, at this moment, she only had Wang Renbiao in her eyes. Even if the surroundings were filled with danger, even if the road ahead was filled with killing intent, she had to protect Wang Renbiao. This was her belief. Cough cough. Yao don't be rash. Wang Renbiao saw a trace of determination and the will to die in Ling Yuyao's eyes. He coughed twice and quickly pressed his hand on Ling Yuyao's shoulder to dissuade her. Ling Yuyao's eyes were filled with tears. She shook her head and said, Young master, Yuyao's life is worthless. Even if I die, Yuyao cannot watch young master suffer. As long as young master is safe and happy, Yuyao will have no regrets even if she dies. With that, she placed Wang Renbiao's arm on her shoulder and stood up from the ground. She looked coldly at the servants who were about to charge over. The temperature in the room instantly dropped to freezing point. No. Don't. Wang Renbiao panicked. Although these servants were far from being Ling Yuyao's match, he knew better than anyone that if Ling Yuyao injured Princess Tang and servants today, it would be the same as cutting herself off from the Wang family. From then on, she would be the Wang family's mortal enemy. There would only be one end for her, death. This was a path of no return. Patriarch. Patriarch. A letter from Chang'an. A letter from Chang'an. Just as the battle between Ling Yuyao and the Wang family servants was about to erupt, just as Ling Yuyao was about to take the step of cutting herself off from the Wang family, a series of hurried footsteps and loud shouts came from outside the room. Ling Yuyao's heart thumped, and the killing intent in her eyes dissipated somewhat. Wang Yu and Princess Tang, who were sitting at the head of the table, immediately lost their composure. Just the words "a letter from Chang" revealed a lot of information. The two of them simultaneously thought that it might be that person in the imperial palace who wrote the letter. A letter from Chang'an? Who wrote it? Wang Yu stood up and asked the servant who ran in. Patriarch, the Marquis of Yong, sent someone to deliver an urgent letter from 800 li away. He said that it must be opened by Patriarch or the princess. The servant raised the letter over his head and bowed. Qizhou was located northwest of Chang'an City, only 400 to 500 li away. Thus, Li Zishuan's letter could reach Qizhou today. The Marquis of Yong'an? Wang Yu and Princess Tang looked at each other in confusion. Wang Yu's eyes darkened as he said, "Quickly bring it up." When Wang Renbiao heard that it was a letter from Li Zishuan, He couldn't help but be stunned, his eyes filled with surprise and confusion. Meanwhile, Ling Yuyao couldn't help but sigh in relief. She understood that even if today's matter couldn't be resolved peacefully, at least Wang Yu and Princess Tang wouldn't make things too difficult for Wang Renbiao over Li Jingchu's matter. Yes, the servant replied and slowly walked forward to hand the letter to Wang Yu. Wang Yu reached out to take it. After seeing that the seal was still intact, he opened the letter and took out a stack of paper. Wang Yu unfolded the paper and saw the words written on it. The peacock flies southeast, circling once every 5 li. At 13, she can weave silk. At 14, she can tailor. At 15, she can play the kongho. At 16, she can recite poetry. At 17, she is the wife of a monarch. Her heart is filled with sorrow. At this moment, Princess Tang also turned to look at the letter in Wang Yu's hand. Isn't this Jiao Zhongqing's wife? What does the Marquis of Yong mean? After a moment, the two of them finished reading the contents of the first piece of paper. They couldn't help but look at each other and ask softly in confusion. Both of them were well-read people and naturally recognized where the contents of the letter came from. At this moment, Wang Yu had a hint of understanding in his heart, but he still wasn't sure what Li Zixuan was trying to express. However, he saw that there was another piece of paper under the letter. Wang Yu pulled it out and said, "Madam, there's another letter here." As he spoke, Wang Yu unfolded the other letter and saw the words written on it. To Provincial Governor Wang and Eldest Princess. This junior suddenly heard that Renbiao is seriously ill again and is worried and unable to calm down. However, this junior still has important matters to attend to in the capital and cannot personally visit Qizhou. Thus, I wrote this letter to ask about it. Renbiao, gentle and pure, honest and magnanimous, my brother. Jingchu, pure and beautiful, gentle on the inside but firm on the outside, my adopted sister. I swear to go to the heavens and the underworld to avenge my brother. This junior Li Zixuan respectfully greets your highness. When he read the second letter, Wang Yu's expression became more and more solemn, while Princess Tang An's expression became more and more furious. Bastard! This Li Zixuan dares to lecture this princess? What right does he have? When she read the last line, I swear to go to the heavens and the underworld to avenge my brother, Princess Tang couldn't hold back her anger any longer. Wang Yu's expression changed, and he hurriedly put away the letter. He looked at Princess Tang and said in a low voice, "Madam, do not speak nonsense. The Marquis of Yong had good intentions. Today's matter ends here. From today onwards, you and I will not interfere with Renbiao and Li Jingchu's marriage." But Princess Tang looked at Wang Yu in surprise, but Wang Yu mercilessly said, "There are no buts. This old man is the head of the Wang family. Come, help young Master Wang to the rear hall to rest. In addition, send someone to the Li family to deliver the betrothal gifts and choose a day to marry Li Jingchu into the estate." Wang Yu, who had seemed somewhat henpecked a moment ago, suddenly became incomparably domineering. Only now did he seem like the current head of the Wang family of Taiyuan. Chapter 1683. What? Does this old man's words no longer carry weight? In the main hall of the Qizhou provincial governor's estate, Wang Yu seemed to have become a completely different person, shocking everyone. The servants who had followed Princess Tang An's orders and wanted to enter to capture Ling Yuyao were all stunned on the spot. For a moment, they did not know whether to advance or retreat. It could be said that they were in a dilemma. Seeing this, Wang Yu's face could not help but sink as he coldly said. He usually gave in to Princess Tang on small matters, but modesty did not mean that he was afraid of her. Sometimes, modesty was also a form of respect. However, no matter what, he was the current patriarch of the Wang family of Taiyuan. As long as he was still the patriarch, the Wang family had to obey his orders. Yes, Patriarch. Seeing Wang Yu's dignified expression and signs of anger, the Wang family servants quickly regained their wits and bowed to receive the order. And Fu then bowed again and said, "This old servant will bring people to prepare the betrothal gifts and bring a matchmaker to the Li family to present the betrothal gifts." Wang Yu nodded in satisfaction and said, "Go." Seeing that her efforts over the past few days had all gone to waste, Princess Tang An's eyes surged with anger and showed signs of exploding. However, Wang Yu's domineering, "This old man is the patriarch of the Wang family," made Princess Tang An's heart palpitate. After sharing the same bed for so many years, she knew that Wang Yu was serious at this moment. If she went against him now, she would not be able to get away with it. Even if she was the princess of the great Tang and Li Er's aunt, she could not do it. This was a family matter of the Wang family. Even if Li Er was the monarch of the country, he could not support Princess Tang, and at this time. As such, Princess Tang could only watch as Wang Yu arranged for people to propose marriage to Li Jingqiu. At this time, Wang Yu walked in front of Wang Renbiao and said with a smile, "Cousin, you don't have to worry about your marriage with Miss Li anymore. Father will help you arrange it. Right now, it is more important for you to take care of your body. Don't wait until the day of the wedding and still be sick in bed." Just a moment ago, his marriage had clearly been opposed by his entire family. But now Wang Yu, the head of the Wang family, was actually supporting it. This change happened too quickly, so quickly that Wang Renbiao was unable to react. Although he had guessed that Li Zixuan would plead for him and Li Jingqiu in the letter, Wang Renbiao did not expect that Li Zixuan's letter would actually be so effective, directly causing Wang Yu's attitude to change 180 degrees. With infinite surprise and doubt, Wang Renbiao said to Wang Yu, "Thank you, father. I will definitely take good care of my body these days." "Sigh. You have a good brother." Wang Yu sighed deeply. He patted his son's shoulder, then looked at Leng Yuyao and said, "Yuyao, quickly help cousin to the backyard to rest, then invite the best doctor in the county to treat him." Previously, when Wang Renbiao was sick in bed, Wang Yu and Princess Tang had also invited a few doctors for him. After all, Wang Renbiao was their son. Although they hated him, it was far from the point where they would disregard his life. However, at that time, Wang Renbiao was only concerned about Li Jingqiu's safety and did not cooperate with the treatment. In addition, he was suffering from a mental illness. The doctors treated him for a few days, but there was almost no effect, so they only left behind a few prescriptions to strengthen his foundation before leaving. Now that Wang Renbiao's biggest worry was gone, with the treatment of the doctors, his recovery would definitely be faster. "Yes, master." The corners of Leng Yuyao's mouth rose slightly. She bowed to Wang Yu with cupped fists, then supported Wang Renbiao and left. "Humph." Princess Tang An, who was standing at the head of the table, finally could not bear it any more. She snorted angrily, then flicked her sleeves and left. Sigh, sigh. Wang Yu reached out to stop her, but in the end, he did not manage to do so. He could only let Princess Tang An walk past him. After some thought, Wang Yu quickly followed. "Hey, madam, your husband had someone buy some of the best divine tea. It's still fresh. Madam, quickly try it. It's very fragrant." In the western courtyard of the provincial governor's residence, Wang Yu had a maidservant bring over a pot of tea and personally poured a cup for Princess Tang An. Then, he walked forward with a fawning expression. At this moment, the mighty and domineering patriarch of the Wang family had turned into a henpecked man. If anyone else saw this, their eyes would definitely pop out of their sockets. Don't be so fake." Princess Tang An stepped aside and stood up angrily. "We've already reached a consensus regarding cousin's marriage. We can't let him marry that merchant's daughter, or else he'll be finished in the Wang family. Didn't you agree before? Why did you become the good guy in the end and I become the vicious and evil woman?" Wang Yu smiled apologetically. "Haha. What are you saying, madam? I don't know if madam is kind, graceful, and generous? Princess Tang was annoyed when she heard this. I'm afraid the entire residence is talking about how cruel I am to my son, and how much you, Wang Yu, dote on your son? These words were naturally spoken out of anger. In fact, both Wang Yu and Princess Tang felt terrible when they saw Wang Renbiao suffering and being bedridden. After all, blood ties could not be severed. The reason why they insisted on separating Wang Renbiao and Li Jingqiu was for Wang Renbiao's future. In Princess Tang An's opinion, if she and Wang Yu persisted, Wang Renbiao might eventually compromise. Hearing this, Wang Yu quickly coughed. Ahem. As for cousin's marriage, Li Jingqiu is indeed not a good match for cousin. Her status is a little low, but Madame Xin of the Marquis of Yong, and you've seen it for yourself. Li Jingqiu is not only the daughter of a merchant, she's also the Marquis of Yong An's adopted sister. So what if she's an adopted sister? She's not his biological sister. Without blood ties, Li Jingqiu's status is still lacking compared to our Wang clan of Taiyuan. Princess Tang said disapprovingly. These words were indeed true. With the prestige of the 5 clans and 7 hopes among the common people, even the Prime Minister's family would find it difficult to marry a descendant of the 5 clans, let alone Li Jingqiu, who was only Li Zishuan's adopted sister. Wang Yu sternly said, Madam, according to the Marquis of Yong An's letter, he values Li Jingqiu greatly. If we go too far, the Marquis of Yong An might. You're the patriarch of the Wang clan of Taiyuan, so why would you fear a mere marquis? What a joke. Princess Tang glanced at Wang Yu and sneered. Wang Yu shook his head and sighed softly. Madam, in the past, the Wang clan of Taiyuan naturally did not fear a mere marquis. However, the situation is different now. The current His Majesty is a man of great talent and vision. His political and martial prowess does not lose out to any of the previous emperors. His intention to weaken the noble clans and promote the commoners is well known. A few months ago, the Chui clan of Qinghe, the Chui clan of Bowling, and the Zheng clan of Xingyang were exterminated by His Majesty. Now, the noble clans are in a precarious situation and have long lost their former glory. Moreover, the Marquis of Yong An is no ordinary marquis. Chapter 1684. Young Master, now that Master and Princess have finally agreed to your marriage with Li Jingqiu, you can rest in peace. Yao will go get a doctor for you. After helping Wang Renbiao into the bedroom in the backyard and helping him lie down, Ling Yuyao looked at the latter with a warm smile on her cold face. She covered Wang Renbiao with a brocade quilt and got up. Yao. Just as Ling Yuyao turned to leave, Wang Renbiao suddenly stretched out his right hand and grabbed her white jade-like wrist, saying, Yao, it's been hard on you these days. Ling Yuyao's body trembled, and she stood motionless on the spot. Wang Renbiao continued, I know that you've been secretly coming here every night to extend my life, and I also know that when we were in the front hall, you really planned to completely turn against father and the Wang family to kill our way out. In addition, the reason why little Xian suddenly sent a letter, I'm afraid it was also because of your secret operation, right? Ling Yuyao's expression changed, and she slowly turned around. She looked at Wang Renbiao and asked in surprise, Young Master, how did you know? Seeing Ling Yuyao's reaction, Wang Renbiao smiled and said, That's right. He raised his head and looked at the curtain above, muttering to himself, Father can change his attitude so quickly, could it be that little Xian promised some benefits? Sigh. I'm afraid I can't repay the favor I owe little Xian in this lifetime. I'm sorry, young master. Yuyao didn't mean to hide it from you. Seeing the disappointed look on Wang Renbiao's face, Ling Yuyao said with some guilt. Haha. You don't have to blame yourself, I don't blame you. Wang Renbiao turned his head and squeezed Ling Yuyao's wrist again, and said with a smile, I understand your good intentions, and since everything is perfect now, that's for the best. I'll try my best to repay the favor I owe little Xian, but it's been hard on you these days, Yao. In Wang Rinbiao's mind, he could never forget Ling Yuyao secretly extending his life in the middle of the night these days. He could never forget that in front of the main hall, Ling Yuyao would rather die than hurt his lover, and even more so, he couldn't forget the determination Ling Yuyao had when she pulled him to kill their way out at the critical moment just now. This already far surpassed the affection between master and servant. He wasn't a plant, so how could he not feel Ling Yuyao's infatuation with him? But there was already someone living in his heart, so how could he still hold Ling Yuyao? Facing Ling Yuyao's silent sacrifice, his heart could be said to have mixed feelings. Young master, I don't suffer. Seeing Wang Rinbiao's eyes filled with tenderness and complicated emotions, Ling Yuyao's heart was filled with grief. Her nose turned somewhat sour as she said, as long as young master is well, even if Yuyao goes through a mountain of blades and a sea of flames, experiencing 1,000 tribulations, it's also as sweet as malt sugar. Yuyao's life was given to her by young noble. Yuyao will not allow young noble to die in front of Yuyao. Finished speaking, Ling Yuyao struggled free from Wang Rinbiao's large hand and turned around. Young master, rest at ease and recuperate. Yuyao will go invite a physician for young master and strive to let young master recover as soon as possible to complete the wedding. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but Ling Yuyao emphasized the words, complete the wedding. After saying that, she didn't wait for Wang Rinbiao's response and directly walked out of the door. Creak bang! The beauty left and the door was tightly shut. Wang Rinbiao looked at the direction Ling Yuyao left in and was speechless for a long time. After an unknown period of time, only to hear him murmur and sigh, silly girl. Chapter 1685. Whether you want to leave or stay, you can decide for yourselves. Faced with this group of servants and maids who had wavering thoughts, Li Jingqiu didn't get angry, nor did she reprimand them. Instead, she took a step back in order to advance, and very frankly gave the choice to these servants and maids. The current her did indeed have the confidence to do so. Ever since she had taken over the Li clan's finances had long since fallen into her hands. Even if these servants all insisted on leaving, she had the ability to make arrangements for them. This, Li Jingqiu's unexpected move left all the servants and Lu Yuerong dumbfounded. Everyone looked at each other in dismay for a moment and fell into hesitation. Young Miss has always been benevolent and kind to us. At this time, I won't leave. I want to stay and take care of young Miss. At this time, a female servant wiped her eyes and stood out to say, "That's right. Not to mention that the Wang clan might not make trouble for young Miss. Even if they do, I want to stay by young Miss's side. Everyone knows how young Miss treats us normally. If you choose to leave now, aren't you afraid of being poked in the back?" The maidservant's words received a response in an instant. A young retainer raised his arm and shouted, "That's right. That's right. At this time, we can't be ungrateful. I won't leave. I won't leave either." For a moment, the rest of the servants began to shout in agreement. Lu Yuerong was completely dumbfounded. The development of the situation was completely beyond her expectations. This was completely illogical. Crazy. Have you all gone crazy? Aren't you afraid of the Wang clan's revenge? Don't you know the consequences of offending the Wang clan and Princess Tang? Lu Yuerong staggered a few steps and roared at the servants with a pale face. You're so sure that the Wang clan will take revenge on you? Just as Lu Yuerong was yelling like a mad woman, the Li residence's gates were pushed open from the outside. A clear and cold female voice sounded, and the temperature in the front yard seemed to drop a few degrees. Lu Yuerong was shocked by the sudden snort. She quickly turned around and was dumbfounded again. She saw a woman in a white dress with a sword in her hand. She stood coldly and proudly at the entrance of the Li residence. This was not the main point. The main point was that behind the woman, there were two groups of men in dark red festive clothes. They were carrying large red wooden boxes one after another. They were walking in the direction where Lu Yuerong was standing now. Who are you? What are you doing? Being interrupted, Lu Yuerong was just about to get angry and curse when she caught a glimpse of the sword at the woman's waist. She immediately swallowed her curses and pointed at the large men carrying the boxes, asking the woman, "What are you doing? Miss Ling, why are you here?" Lu Yuerong did not recognize this woman, but Li Jingqiu did. She hurriedly stepped forward and greeted her with a smile. At the same time, she was a little puzzled because Ling Yuyao's entourage was too inconceivable. Wasn't the Wang clan going to punish her? But why were they carrying so many large chests? No matter how she looked at it, it didn't seem like they were going to punish her. Ling Yuyao did not immediately answer Li Jingqiu's question. Instead, she coldly glanced at Lu Yuerong and said, "If it weren't for the fact that you are Miss Li's only living elder, I would kill every one of you on sight." Lu Yuerong couldn't help but shudder when she felt the faint murderous aura emanating from Ling Yuyao. However, Ling Yuyao's gaze didn't linger on her for long. After she finished speaking, Ling Yuyao looked at Li Jingqiu. Ling Yuyao felt a little better when she saw that the latter's face had obviously become thinner. After all, Wang Renbiao hadn't just become thinner recently. He had almost paid the price with his life. "Today, I brought a matchmaker to propose marriage for the young master." Chapter 1686. A horse carriage and a troop of soldiers came down from the Cloud Mountain under the scorching afternoon sun and embarked on the long journey to Qingzhou. Ma Zhou didn't know what he would experience there, but he firmly believed that with his own ability, he could quickly stabilize Qingzhou. The road ahead was long and he understood that this was a great opportunity given by Li Zixuan to fulfill his political ambitions. He didn't want to waste it. Ever since Ma Zhou became the editor-in-chief of Datong Daily, he had published many articles in Datong Daily. Not only did his political views attract the praise of a considerable number of court officials, even Li Er had read a few of his articles and praised them to no end. Therefore, it was actually very easy for Ma Zhou to enter the court as an official at this time. As long as Li Zixuan recommended him, he would be able to obtain an official position. However, he had just entered the court and hadn't made any contributions. Furthermore, he didn't take the proper path of the imperial examinations. At the beginning, he wouldn't be able to become a high-ranking official. At most, he would be an assistant official in some yamen. Therefore, Ma Zhou thought that rather than being an unknown and powerless assistant official in the court, it would be better to follow Li Zixuan's wishes and go to Qingzhou to take the position of the provincial governor. As an official, with Li Zixuan's trust and important position, he could more unscrupulously display what he had learned and realize his political ambitions faster. Therefore, even though he knew that the road ahead was bumpy and full of thorns, Ma Zhou still resolutely embarked on the road to Qingzhou. However, whether it was him or Li Zixuan, they didn't expect the situation in Qingzhou to be far from simple. Furthermore, in the near future, there would be an unprecedented change in Qingzhou. "Uncle Ma, you must be safe. I'm still waiting for you to send someone to bring me to Qingzhou to play." On a small hill at the foot of the Cloud Mountain, a young girl wearing a red dress was facing the east. She looked at the group coming down from the Cloud Mountain. She clasped her hands together and closed her eyes to pray. "Girl, since you're here, why don't you go up and see Mr. Ma off?" Suddenly, a man's voice came from the side of the young girl. The young girl was shocked. She quickly opened her eyes and turned around. When she saw who it was, she hurriedly stepped forward and greeted him. "It's Mr. Why are you here?" The person who came was Li Zixuan, and the girl in red was Li Yu. She was wearing a red dress, and under the sunlight, she looked like a red koi, bright and beautiful. "Heh! After sending Mr. Ma off, I was preparing to go down the mountain to the workshop. I didn't expect to meet you here." Li Zixuan smiled and then asked, "Since you are already here, why don't you go up and say goodbye to Mr. Ma?" Could it be that you didn't know that he was going to Qingzhou? No. I already knew about it this morning. Li Yu shook her head. She looked at the back of Ma Zhou and the group that was gradually disappearing. She said softly, "Uncle Ma and I have already said goodbye this morning. I don't want to go up the mountain to say goodbye again. It will only make us sad. It's better to look at him from afar like now." Seeing that Li Yu's face was full of reluctance, Li Zixuan expressed his understanding. When this girl came to Chang'an alone, although he took care of her and helped her enter the editorial department of Tang Daily, he didn't care much about what happened after that. It was completely Ma Zhou who took care of her. Now, Li Yu could mix well in the editorial department, mostly because of Ma Zhou's efforts. Now that Ma Zhou was going to Qingzhou, this girl would naturally feel reluctant to part with him. Chapter 1687. I heard that Yanhuang College is going to release the exam results tomorrow. I wonder how many people will be admitted this time. Last time, Yanhuang College admitted more than 600 students. This time it should be more, right? Only 600 people? But this year, the number of people taking the exam is close to 10,000. It's several times more than last year. But don't forget that this year, Yanhuang College has two schools, the School of Engineering and the School of Medicine. Maybe the total number of students will be several times more than last year's. Doesn't that mean I have a chance this year? Sigh. I'm in trouble. I didn't finish the last two big questions in the mathematics exam. I also got 2 quadratic equations wrong. I'm afraid I have no hope of getting into Yanhuang College this time. Sigh. I didn't answer a few questions in the theory exam for the School of Medicine. Especially the question Tang inner body, Yangming Qi division, Tang spleen meridian, disease in blood division. I still haven't figured it out. 2 days had passed since the end of Yanhuang College's entrance exam. According to the rules, the college would release the exam results on the 3rd day after the exam to announce the results of the candidate. At this juncture, the examinees who had indulged themselves for 2 days after the exam no longer had the mood to indulge in debauchery, eating, drinking, and having fun. Some of the people who were close to each other gathered in groups of 3 to 5 to discuss the possible situations that might occur when the results were released tomorrow. Such a grand occasion was no less than the imperial examinations of the Song and Ming dynasties. Of course, this didn't mean that the influence of Yanhuang College's entrance exam had surpassed that of the imperial examinations. In fact, the imperial examinations were more attractive to scholars. There were 2 reasons why the entrance exam was more grand than the imperial examinations. First, the threshold for Yanhuang College's entrance exam was much lower than that of the imperial examinations. Only a few decades had passed since Emperor Yang of Sui established the imperial examinations. The imperial examinations system wasn't as perfect as it was during the Song and Ming dynasties. In this era, if one wanted to take part in the imperial examinations, one had to be recommended by a local famous scholar, family, or official. Just based on this point, most of the people who didn't have any social connections and weren't famous were rejected. On the other hand, taking part in Yanhuang College's entrance exam didn't require any threshold. As long as one was confident in one's ability, they could sign up. The only thing one needed to pay was the travel expenses to Lantian County. Second, Yanhuang College's enrollment quota was much more than the number of jinshi in the imperial examinations. Every year, the Tang Empire's imperial examinations selected only 100 jinshi. However, Yanhuang College's first batch of students had more than 600. The second batch would definitely have more. This also indirectly stimulated everyone's enthusiasm to apply for Yanhuang College. However, there was a more important point. That was, through the joint efforts of all the teachers and students of the academy, the results created by Yanhuang College in the past year had changed the majority of people's impression of Yanhuang College and engineering. Among the people, people's voices for engineering were getting louder and louder. Although it wasn't enough to compete with the powerful and deep-rooted Confucianism, the number of people who opposed engineering was getting fewer and fewer. It could be said that although the attraction of Yanhuang College's entrance exam wasn't as attractive as that of the imperial examinations, the reputation of Yanhuang College today had definitely surpassed that of the Tang Empire's first official university, the Imperial College. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.